everybody. How's it going here, guys? Let's get this party started. Everybody enjoy the Hernandez Ranch. We did a lot of work on that. That was there was a lot to it. It's got a lot of views. So people were wanting it. All right, guys, let's get started here. Let's do the Patreon. Sorry it took so long, dude. I mean, the last 2 weeks has been a nightmare, dude. I don't know what's going on. It's just I'm beyond frustrated with it. We should have started an hour ago, and here we are. It's it's almost 9. I apologize. It's Central Time. People on the East Coast are it's 10 o'clock. So I really was not. I was trying to get things going way earlier, but it just didn't happen. We're trying to get started an hour ago. Thank you. So we're going to talk about some things. We got a lot to talk about, dude. I mean, a lot to talk about. I hope people are up, willing to stay up or whatever, because we got things we got to go over. I mean, there's a lot of subject matter to cover tonight. We're going to try and get what we can. So let me get the Patreon read real quick. Adam Jinx, Brady Matsunaga, David Vigil, Dorothy Metcalf, Fat Squatch, Royce Burnett, Maynard W, Melissa, Titan, Alexander Murphy, Barbara Blendy, Cassidy Lee, Charles Hamill, Chris Clough, Curtis Turner, Cyrilli, David Allman, Dead Man Walking, Debbie Wolf, Derek Tribble, Eric Garcia, Guy, James Estrada, Jim Kovach, Josh and Kelly Herrera, Kenny Irish, Martin Hortel, Mary Plyler, Matthew Durgo, Melissa Koyman, Miguel Guerra, Mimi Piccolelli, Polly G, Pauline Rome, Philip Morn, Ricardo Herrera, Samantha Bowman, Shonda Hardinger, Sonia Girding, Stephen Hall, Super Hornet 1, Taylor Alexander Oric, Terry Fusler, Tim Lewis, Tim Bernard, Vulcan Death Grip, and Extreme Reality Check. Those are our Patreon, $10 and up. So the $20 is the PRT VIP. Okay, we just started that tier a week or two ago. So if you are a $20 tier Patreon subscriber, remember the Dogman conference that's coming up in August, okay? And if you are one of those people that is a $20 tier person, your ticket is cheaper. You get a $10 discount on your general admission ticket, and you get a $15 on the VIP ticket. Now, we're going to have 50 VIP. I believe that's the right call. I believe if Ken is in the audience or listening, put it on there and tell me if that's correct. I think we came up with 50. $50, and you're going to get to eat dinner with all of these people that are going to be there. And I'm going to read the names off, the official lineup. And then there's still 2 or 3 that might show up, but we're not 100%. We don't know 100% yet, because they have to let us know. We're 90% sure with one of them, and the other one we're not. We're about 80. So let me just go over this list, and I don't want to tell people something that turns out to not be correct. So I was talking to Roger Carter. He's the guy he's won some of the contests on here. There was another guy that won. His name was Doug. I don't know if you still listen to the show, but if you're there, get in touch with me, because you were a super good artist too. You guys and Ashley Clapstein, you were a good artist. You guys are the ones that were multiple winners on those art contests. Roger and Carter's been a follower of the show and a friend of mine for a long time. And So obviously I'm going to be there to speak. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. Hopefully it'll just go through and we can get past me and get everybody else. You guys can listen to me talk anytime. Okay. These other people, you know, it's going to be a treat for you. That's why I'm not going to be up there blabbing for no hour or 2 hour. Hopefully it'll just be 45 minutes at most. And then I can get out of there and get out everybody's hair. And then y'all can, listen to the other people talk, because that's the real treat. Paranormal presents the first annual Dogman / Cryptid conference. That's the name. Okay, it's in Paris, Tennessee on August 13th. Now, if you buy a VIP ticket, then show up on the 12th, because you're going to be hanging out with all of us and you're going to get some close-up time with us, where, you know, the next day, there's going to be 400 tickets. Originally, we had said 300, 400. So, yeah, and so let me see here. What did Ken say? It was 50. Tickets go on sale Saturday afternoon. Yeah, that's what we agreed on. Saturday afternoon, tickets go on sale at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, okay? That's going to be on the Eventbrite site. And the tickets, and now everybody needs to understand something else. Let me explain something to you. This is Paranormal's event. This is Paranormal Round Table's event. Ken Gerhard was gracious enough and good enough friend to go out of his way to try to help me get this done, because it was something that me and him had started planning way back when the pandemic started, and then we were like, well, I guess there goes that. So we just kind of put it on the back burner. But we're back in business. We're doing it. We're going to get it done. August 13th. That's for everybody who pays for general admission. Now, I would try to get a ticket as soon as possible, because from what the NADP is telling me and from what all these other groups and organizations are telling me, they got people ready to go. So when these things go on sale on Saturday at 4 o'clock, you need to get them if you're planning on going, because you may not get one if you know. And I'm just trying to lay it out there. I'm being honest. I'm not trying to blow smoke so everybody can go run and get a ticket. I'm not doing this for the money. If I can break even and make everybody have a good time, that's all I care about. I'm going out of my way to put an all-star lineup together. Okay, I want this to be an all-star lineup, so there's somebody there that everybody wants to meet. There's multiple people there that you can talk to and meet, and I guarantee you haven't met all these people. And I'm going to name them. Myself, Ken Gerhard, the MCs, and Ron Murphy does a great presentation. He's a Bigfoot. He does Dogman. He does all this other stuff. I was on a show with him with Lon Strickler, if you want to know who that is. Nick Redfern, prolific author. He's written 72 books. Bettina Moss, she's got a great show. I've been on her show. We just finished up a couple weeks ago doing a set with her. And Steve Stockton, great author, has got a huge podcast, whatever. Barton Nunley, obviously everybody knows Barton. He's been on the show and been a part of the show and part of the PRT family for a while. Barton Nunley's going to be there. From the NADP, we got Jody Cook and Nick Valente. They're going to be there. Jay Tucker, Vault. Everybody knows him as Vault. He's going to be there. Kenny Irish, a 3-time bestseller on Amazon. His book, his bestseller 3 times. American Cryptids, and now he's writing International Cryptids. Elijah Henderson, David Weatherly. Elijah Henderson, the Cryptid Studies Institute, he's from the LBL. Obviously, he's got some mad credentials being from there. He's got tons of stuff about the LBL. And then David Weatherly. Everybody, he's a legend. Everybody knows who David is. And then Kumbo Baker. And if you're in the Dogman or even in the Bigfoot field, you probably know who he is. A lot of people know him, and so I was being pushed to talk with him, and I was like, and Bettina facilitated that one night after she did a show with him, and so we got to talking, and it was a very fruitful talk. Kathy Harper says, yes, Kathy, you were at the Mineola Bigfoot conference. It was a great event. Yes, I did not bring your stuff. I was so far behind. Kathy, I want to tell everybody, I'm going to bring it hopefully next Tuesday when I'm got time to scratch my head, and turn around. she made some amazing things that were Bigfoot, like these cup holder thingies, and bowl holders that keep your things warm, keep your hand from getting burned. It's really cool. She had all this stuff like hand towels and all kind. It was really neat. And I bought a bunch of her stuff. I can't say enough about her work. And I'm going to start giving those away as giveaways. And then going to start working toward maybe having her make some Dogman and Bigfoot stuff. And maybe we could take it to the conference and do them as giveaways and sell some of them if you guys are interested. Really cool stuff. And I was so glad to meet you, Kathy. You were an awesome person. I was really overwhelmed at the Bigfoot, Mineola Bigfoot conference. I was shocked at how many people in the Bigfoot community knew who I was. I have done a lot of Bigfoot work, but it's not like my main wheelhouse, you know. I'm widely considered a Dogman researcher, although it's not really fair to call me that because I've done so much work in the paranormal field in so many different areas. That Dogman is just one thing. And people are like, why are you doing this? It's not your wheelhouse, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Do whatever I want. You know, we talk about insurance premiums if I want, you know. It's just up to people to listen. But people, you know, a lot of people there, though, were very nice, very gracious. I think I got somebody, but it doesn't hurt to have a backup or two if somebody wants to try their hand at it. Ryan Edwards, it was nice to meet you too there, and it was good to see Lyle and Ken and Nick Redfern. You know, Nick was funny and gracious, a great guy. We went out to eat dinner with him and Ken and all the people there, and we all had a great time. You know, it was cool. I had a good time. I'm glad I went. It was a 4.5 hour drive, and I was tired, and I went in the middle of the night after I finished doing my guard checks. I went out and I said, you know what, let's go. And we did it. And so we had a blast. I'm just, like I said, I was shocked how many people knew who I was without, you know, really having been at any of these conferences. That was the first Bigfoot conference I've ever been to. Somebody told me the other day, they're like, yeah, you think you know everything. You think you can do anything. I don't do anything I put my mind to. And somebody asked me, they're like, did you know it is not a Masonic ring? That is the number 7 because that's my life path number. So, why would you say that? Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that donation. We're definitely going to be needing it for the conference. So here's the thing. You know, there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do. I'm going to be real honest. I'm going to tell you, I can't drive a stick shift worth a darn. I've tried on multiple occasions, and I've burned out some clutches. Okay. And so that's something that my wife can do very well. She's also was an airplane mechanic. I can't work on airplanes, nor can I play a guitar. Just the truth. I'm very honest. I'm burying my soul out there. I've always wanted to be a musician. I was talking to Ken about that when we were at the conference. I always wanted to be a musician. Everybody in my family's got some sort of musical talent. They can just pick up an instrument and start playing. Except for me. You know. But this is not a Masonic ring, okay? You can look at the side of it there, and it's nothing. Has nothing to do with that, okay? It's not what this is. And I don't care about that one way or the other. So it's not my thing. Look, so the thing is, you can do a lot of things with your life, but it's what you choose to put effort into. The thing is, it doesn't take a lot of effort for me to do something if I'm into it. Well, for example, I like the game Age of Empires. Well, I started playing that game and I got really good at it and became a lieutenant or for a while. And I was a second lieutenant because I dropped off a little bit, but I became a master at that game. I won a lot of battles. I was beating people all over the world in that game. I enjoyed it. I got good at it. Started playing Civilization. That was another one. I like Sid Meier. It was a good game. But I'm not like a huge gamer anymore. I just played games, and when I was good at something, Street Fighter, oh yeah. I was down with some Street Fighter. And Mortal Kombat, man, I was good at those games. But there's other games, and whatever, Super Tecmo Bowl, oh my gosh. But there's an ebb and flow. And people say, well, you think you can do anything, there's God, such a blah, 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 blah. It all depends on what you're interested in, because sometimes what you're interested in, you're just not good at, and sometimes what you're really good at is not really what you're interested in. It just depends. People think that I'm being a blowhard when I tell them that I was a good fighter. That's just what I was. That's what I did. And there's a lot of people that are good at a lot of things. Here's the thing. My wife she rode motorcycles for years. Good for her. I couldn't do it. I got on a motorcycle one time when I was 16. You know what happened? I drove it down the street and I rode it off into a ditch. I flipped 20 feet in the air, and it was one of those moments where it was like Satori. Everything slows down. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I'm never getting on a motorcycle again. I never did it. Ever did it again. It was a horrific experience, and something really bad happened. So I just was like, you know what? It's just not real. It just wasn't something I was good at. Let's put it that way. I found my niche in other activities. Yeah, somebody said I'm telling my age, Super Tecmo Bowl. Well, they came out with another one on the DS, on the Nintendo DS for a while, which was really good. But there was some, and now I was talking to my nephews about some games or whatever today, and I was looking at that was Ultima Online, then it became Elder Scrolls, whatever. So I don't know if anybody here is interested in those kind of games, but I like those kind of games. But so here's the thing. What you got to do is find your niche and find what you're good at. And then when you find that niche, then you go for it. And don't be afraid to fail, because that is the big problem. A lot of people are afraid to fail. People talk a lot of trash. But let me tell you something, dude. It takes a lot of work to do what we do. Whether you're an author, a researcher, a hardcore researcher, or a podcaster, this isn't easy. It's not just something you can do. A lot of people do it, and a lot of people aren't good at it. And there's a lot of people doing podcasting who shouldn't be doing podcasting. A lot of people writing books should be writing books. That's what David Weatherly was telling me the other day. He was like, just because you can doesn't mean you should, But hopefully this thing goes off well, and everything works out. And, we make it work. I'm not going to entertain any more people asking me about Voldemort being at this conference. He's not, okay? Because first of all, how is he is this going to be like the man behind the curtain? Like the Wizard of Oz? The disembodied voice? What is he supposed to be? Just a floating green mist with a voice coming out of it? Think about it, dude, okay? Stop asking me that stupid question. That is ridiculous, and I'm really getting aggravated. It's like you're trying to aggravate me. The guy's not going to be there. Okay? He didn't show himself. Why would he show up? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's just, and I'm sorry if you're offended by what it did, too bad. Because I'm sick and tired of hearing about that guy and him. He's not going to be there. He's got his thing with his goofy stuff he does. And his 5 different podcasts that are all whatever. Go check it out. Just, whatever. We did do the Hernandez Ranch. And the first thing people said was, oh, you started off the show bagging on him. No, I had to explain what the deal was. Because I put those shows on his deal. So I had to explain. and why things seem so different from when it was on his channel, because you couldn't talk about those things. Because he follows a narrative. So go ahead. Go on now. Get. And so, Titan, thank you for that donation. Didn't mean to be rude and not give you credit for that. Thank you so much. What we're looking at right now is 400 tickets. Now, this place can hold more, but we're looking at wanting to be comfortable. Okay? So, with all those speakers there, my dear friend and colleague says that after 4 o'clock or 5, I think it was 4 or 5, he said, that there will be less than 10 people there to listen to the rest of the speakers. And I'm like, really? I don't believe that. And I want you guys, as my listeners, to prove him wrong, paratroopers. Okay? Ken, I love you, but you're of little faith. You didn't believe in being able to sell that book. And you still haven't eaten the crow. Okay? Barton reminded me and Steve Stockton of that last night on the phone. That you were supposed to eat the crow. I sent you the picture of the grackle and you just made fun of it. So you're still supposed to eat that crow. And the Bucks beat the Packs. I believe we had something on that too. I don't remember. Was it you? Pretty sure. I have a few Packer friends. They need help. They need to go get some help, but they just keep, rooting for Aaron Rodgers. Can't seem to win the big game now. Did it once. He's never done it again. Here's what we got. Tickets are $30. If you're a $20 Patreon member, they're $20. So what you'll do is you'll pay for it, and then we'll refund you that money. Okay? If you're a VIP ticket, you want a VIP ticket, it's $75, and your $20 Patreon will get you $10 off of that. I'm sorry, $15. You'll pay $60 for a VIP ticket. Here's the thing that I want to emphasize. If you want to get a hotel booked for that weekend or whatever, you need to do it soon, because a bunch of people are going to be those hotels. There's like 3 of them, I think, in that town. So they are going to get booked up quickly, like mad quick. So when you start looking at where you're going to stay, you may end up having to stay a town over or whatever if you guys don't get get the hotel rooms booked. Quality Inn is the hotel that's attached next to the convention center. They aren't technically affiliated, but they are whatever. And I do think that there might be some deals or something that Quality Inn. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I'm not for sure. You got to call up there and see what you can get. There will be a link given at 4 p.m. Saturday. Everybody needs to know that. So the Dogman conference will go. It says, what does the VIP ticket get you? VIP ticket gets you access to the night before, which is Friday, where you have exclusive time with the authors, researchers, podcasters that are going to be there. And like I said, there's a couple people on there that we're not 100% about. One of them, Josh Nanokio, told me that he's going to try and be there tomorrow. He told me he was going to try and be there in August. Sorry. Talked to him yesterday. And I'm still waiting on confirmation from someone else. But everybody else is locked in. Somebody just said, is this in Austin? No, it is in Paris, Tennessee, August 13th. And if you're VIP, you get in August 12th. And we're going to have a special dinner with the people that are going to be in a part of the conference. Okay? There's going to be like 14 or 15 people that are going to be speaking. Okay? I think there's like 8 people that are, and then 6 people on a panel. Okay? And then if anybody that wants to speak that was from the panel, they can go beyond the 5 o'clock, whatever time, 6 o'clock time, whatever, and we can go however long you want. I really don't care. I don't mind hanging out and chatting and being friends with anybody and hanging out and doing whatever. We can hang out, until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, as far as I'm concerned. As long as we get to have dinner on Saturday, we get to go eat dinner and everybody comes back, whatever, we can keep going. Ken might decide he's tired and wants to go to bed. That's fine. I'll take over and I'll MC. And we'll just keep throwing down. It's just all depends on you, folks. We are literally willing to do this until the evening, till late in the evening. I am. I give you my word on that. And you won't leave empty-handed. I've already ordered some things as giveaways there that, you might get something small, but hey, you get something to walk away from with free. And then if you want something extra, well, we're going to have shirts based on the banner. And we're going to have posters of everybody and we're going to do some giveaways of these different things, and we're going to have door prizes, and we're going to have raffles, and we're going to have maybe some auctions so we can help raise money to pay for everything, because we're hoping to break even, but we might not, so it is what it is. We're talking about this conference because this is a big thing. Shonda, thank you for that $50 donation. I appreciate it so much. And Fat Squatch, thank you for that donation. You guys are always the people that help. I appreciate that a lot. So that being said, we have some things to talk about. Go to the Paranormal Round Table group on Facebook. If you're not a member of the Paranormal Round Table group on Facebook, then you're missing out, because you get a ton of good stuff on there, good content. You get a lot of stories and stuff, some of them that I end up picking up on and doing later, and you kind of get a first look at them, And so there's about 7,600 people in that group, and it's growing. And we want to try to reach as many people as possible, but that's where a lot of the news goes. Then Tony's got Paranormal Encounters. Nellie's got the prayer group, the Paranormal Prayer Group, and then she's got Paranormal Lounge. She's got Paranormal Lounge, and then we got Paranormal Truckers, which is John King, and then we got Quad Coalition, which is Nick Valente, and then we got Ryan's group, Whisper to a Scream. It's based on his podcast. And then we got, I don't know how many others, the NADP, Region 2, which is D.A. Roberts. All those, I'm an admin in all those groups. Dogman Werewolf Discussion Group is another one. So yeah. So that's what's going on. We're getting everything in order, getting everything together. August 13th. Remember that. Now let's do this. Got a weird story. I'm going to throw this out there before we get started with our guest who's going to come on. This happened. This is a weird one, dude. It's a ghost story. And I thought this was interesting. Every now and then I get stories like this, but they're never like too involved. I got one, and then I thought, you know what? I've heard a few others, but they're real brief. And let me see if I can get some more, and we'll put it together. Maybe we can do a show about it. But that was months and months ago, maybe over a year ago. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm not even gonna. There's only like two really good ones. The rest are just kind of like little, whatever. But I get stories sometimes of like people seeing like soldiers. Ghosts of soldiers. And this one was intriguing because it happened on the Devil's Backbone, and it happened to these people last October. And they were a husband and wife, and they were driving down the Devil's Backbone in that area, and it's in between San Marcos and Blanco, if you look at it on the map. And when they were coming up near the area where everybody hangs the crosses on the fence, it's like an overlook. Slash rest park, whatever, rest stop. And when they were driving through there, the husband, he said they were really tired. They were coming back from a dinner party, and so they were heading toward Blanco. And I think they lived. But they didn't live in Blanco. They lived somewhere else. But anyway, they were almost like coming around the bend, going toward Blanco. And this guy stumbles out in front of their vehicle, and for a second was just kind of like a deer in the headlights, and then moved real quick out of the way, and then turned and was looking at them as they drove by. And the look on his face was like he was in shock, like he just looked out of place and he was stunned. And I said, what was so special about this guy? And yes, actually, Tony, I did. That you were telling me to. Yeah, Fat Squatch, thank you for that donation. He was dressed like a Civil War soldier, and it was like 1 a.m. or 1 or 2, and they said it was between 1:30 and 2. So, I mean, he said that we were driving, and it was, they were in a luxury car, and he said, I look up and I just see this guy, and the look on his face was like he was wide-eyed, wide-eyed and wild-eyed. And he's like, he looked like, like he had 1,000-yard stare look on his face, like, what the heck? Like, he'd been through some stuff and was also very shocked at their automobile. His wife says, oh my gosh, she looks to the other side. She sees that quickly and looks to the other side. And there's another guy that had kind of stumbled onto the road with a pack on his back and was holding a rifle, and he looked like a Civil War soldier. They looked like Confederate soldiers. And she said he was like right there on the side of the road. She goes, I looked right at him, and he was just walked up and like, whoa, he was stunned. And I said, what are the odds, though, could they have been reenactors? Like reenactors are coming out of the woods, or something maybe. I don't know. I don't know why they would be walking around the woods, on a Friday night dressed like Civil War soldiers in the pitch dark. She said they both said it was pitch dark out there. And I thought, that is the weirdest, like, what was that? Like, they just stumbled onto the road. Liberty, thank you for that donation. It says, PRT makes my week. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad we make your week. You guys make my week. And I was just like, what are the odds of this? I mean, it was crazy. If the odds of this being ghosts is pretty high out there. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. There's a guy that wrote books about it. His name was Burt Wall. He was on Unsolved Mysteries, talking about the Devil's Backbone. These guys stumbled out onto the road, and they looked lost and confused, and I honestly think that something was going on there that we can't explain. I don't believe that it was here. I don't believe that it was guys dressed up as reenactors. There was no news of any reenactment going on out there. Supposedly the Confederate treasury was buried out there in an area called Little Arkansas. There's stories of Spanish gold, Confederate gold, ambushes, you name it, dude. Outlaws that went out there and were never found, never seen again. Comanches and Apaches killing each other and killing settlers, and settlers killing each other, and you name it, dude. Just all kinds of stuff went on out there. A goat man type creature was killing cattle, livestock out there, which now people say it's a spirit that lives near Purgatory Road. It's a black, the fur is black, goat man type creature, and everybody says that he exists. They say that he's out there, or it exists, and so they said that it's a very haunted place that a lot of people, don't like to go to. Hey, Dick, what's going on today, man? Let's keep it funny, but let's keep it clean, Dick. Okay? You're a friend, but sometimes you get a little carried away on the live, so let's kind of keep it clean. Let's keep focused on what we're talking about. Robert Clark asks, what part in the Bible did King Solomon summon Dogman? I don't know. I mean, you tell me. I've never heard of Dogman being summoned in the Bible. Yeah, we're oddly enough, on the Hernandez Ranch people that were living out there, they were coming back from a get together, and they saw a goat man, like they drove by it and it was like right there, which I think has something to do with their penchant for seeing things. I think there's just like a type of people that see things. And I think they're experiencers. Amy, apologies for being so late. Amy, don't worry about it. But anyway, the Civil War thing is really weird. And I had another story about somebody seeing Confederate soldiers on horseback. These guys were on foot. And who knows what they were doing or why they would have been out there like that. I mean, I know that they were out there, but Yes. Meandering around with Johnny Jan says, are we going to get anything? Are we going to get anything on the Not Deer after Hernandez Ranch? Yeah. Yes, meandering around with Johnny Jans. You are. Not Deer is coming up. Not this coming Friday, because this Friday is Hernandez Ranch. And then next Friday is Not Deer. And if you don't know what Not Deer are, tune in, you'll find out. I'm going to go into a long explanation about it right now. Yeah. So anyway, these Confederate soldiers, I guess maybe were ghosts. Maybe they came out of a time warp, a portal. I have no idea. I don't know what that was. I just know they almost got struck. So that being said, we're going to call our guest and we're going to start talking to him. That was my ghost story. I got a couple others, about just not as in depth, but one is just like, I'm hoping that it will be, because I'm supposed to call this guy next week and talk to him. But he travels a lot, so it's kind of hard to pin him down. But so we're going to talk. He had two experiences with these Confederate soldiers on horseback, and so that's interesting. And maybe I'll throw that on here on the live stream or tell it on on a Friday podcast. If you guys have any suggestions of what you want, as far as what you want to hear, feel free to send them to me. I get slammed with emails and messages on Messenger. Just send me your questions, send me your whatever. If you're interested in hearing a certain topic that we haven't covered, which I find hard, we've covered most, pretty handily. But we always get more stories. We can always go back and revisit a topic. And if it's something that you want to hear, then let me know. Okay. Keep on rocking in the weird world. Let me get these freaking fat enhancers on. These freaking glasses. I'm gonna read that. There we go. 327 people listening, only 53 likes. That's not good. I have some Jaden. I have some shadow people stuff that I'm ready to talk about, but I might just save that for next week, because we have a great storyteller that's about to come on the show right now. I'm going to call him up and let's get this going. Last week was crazy, man, wasn't it, folks? Whatever they were doing was messing with my feed with the live stream, and it was just messing with the internet.
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me, Steve?
Yeah, sure can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. So how you doing tonight? This is Steve Stockton, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing tonight, Steve?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Hey, everybody. That was a real interesting conversation we had last night with Barton
With Barton
Nunley.
Nunley, yes, it was absolutely. That was a cool conversation. Hey, you know when you were talking about at the end there, we were talking about dandy. You know the dandy dog food. I'm surprised because I didn't even know. Do they still make that? Because I have a 1954 Mickey Mantle that was a dandy dog food card, and
I don't know. That was a popular brand in the South. I know a lot of people
yeah.
fed their dog Jim Dandy brand dog food. And some of those guys on the Grand Ole Opry, Grandpa Jones, I know did a commercial for. I think his was Trailblazer. Anyway, I'm getting my dog foods mixed up, but there were some popular brands down south that may or may not be around anymore.
Yeah, because that year, I collect vintage cards when I can. I don't have time to collect anything right now, but it's funny because we had dandy dog food. There was they produced a 1954 Mickey Mantle because that year he did two different cards, and I think it was Red Heart, or maybe it was Red Heart dog food, and anyway, another one was Dandy. There were two different ones, Red Heart and Dandy, and those are the cards that were made that year. He didn't do a Topps card in 1954. So I thought it was interesting that you had brought that up. So I was just like, yeah, it's funny because I have the Dandy card. I don't have the. You know what? I might have them both. Anyway, it was interesting though that we were talking about that last night, dude, and so we talked about all kinds of stuff, man. So one of the things I was gonna bring up before we get started, how do you feel about the conference, Steve?
Oh man, I am more than excited. I'm originally from East Tennessee, and this will be my first time back in the state since 2004. So I'm anxious to get back. Hopefully, some of my people from East Tennessee will come out and see us. I've got family in Middle Tennessee as well, so really, really looking forward to it. Paris is a nice place.
Mm-hmm.
We've got that little. Model of the Eiffel Tower there. I think it's 70 feet tall, and then you're just right there on the Tennessee side. On the other side in Kentucky, that's LBL, Land Between the Lakes country right there. Kentucky Lake is just right there.
Yeah, because that's so it's kind of a bit of a homecoming for you.
Yeah,
and it was cool to introduce you and Barton last night. You and Barton had never met. And I thought it was cool that you had read Inhumanoids. I think that's the greatest cryptid book I've ever read.
Yeah, that is an excellent book. Mm-hmm. I recommend that to anybody.
Yeah, Barton does a great job. But Steve, you're no slouch. I read your book, My Strange World. Dude, that was really cool, man. Like, you've had some experiences, and I'm going to get into a couple of those. How many books have you written now, Steve?
Let's see. I think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Published 7, working on 8 and 9 at the moment. So,
Strange Things in the Woods, right?
Yeah, there was Strange Things in the Woods and More Strange Things in the Woods. Those have been combined into one volume when I went with the publisher I'm with now. And when that first came out, those 2 books, I do shows like this, call-in shows, radio shows, whatnot, and people would always say, well, these are other people's experiences you've collected. It was experiences of friends and family and friends of family and people I'd worked with and things like that. And invariably the host or one of the callers would say, well, these are other people's experiences. Do you have any? And I would tell one story or another. And I got to thinking about that. And I thought, I've probably got enough to fill a small book. And it was actually more than I thought it was once I started writing them down. And I probably got enough that's not in that one that I could do a second volume about the same size.
Yeah. And okay. So obviously I've read your book, My Strange World, and I liked it a lot. So, but there was one story in particular on there that I thought was really cool, and I wanted to talk about that one because it was something that interested me, because we talked about it last night with Barton, and I told you guys about what happened to me, but you had an experience, and I don't know if I've ever told my experience on the show. It wasn't real, it wasn't like this real big thing or whatever. It wasn't as scary as yours, but you had something happen to you in that book, and when I read that part, it brought up 2 points for me. But I want you to tell the audience about your experience and what happened to you, because I'm not going to give away everything in the book, but I wanted you to tell that part of the story. It was pretty interesting. It was pretty compelling. You know what I'm talking about. You called it the scariest experience you'd ever had, your personal experience?
Yeah, one of the scariest. It was up there at that time. It was the most scariest, and stayed that way for a couple of decades anyway. But in the book, it's called "The Thing in the Ditch," and I didn't really know what to call it. Other than that, I mean, I have an idea what it might be, and I'll get to that in a little bit toward the end of the story. But grew up in the country, East Tennessee, rural East Tennessee, West Knox County. We had about 25 acres out there, and only about 5 of it was cleared off. The rest of it was in old growth timber, and kind of a bucolic place to have a childhood, woods to play in, and a big yard. The house sat over 200 feet off the road back under some pine trees there. So I had all these places out in the woods that I liked to play. I enjoyed getting out in the woods, still do. It's been a lifelong pleasure. And I was out one day, and I'd walked up to the far end of the property, heading east, and there was an old ditch line through there. I found out much later through some old maps and things at the McClung Library or McClung Museum at UT, that had been the original dirt road through the area, dating back probably to pre-Revolutionary War times, and was the stagecoach road and all this. I'm standing there looking down in this ditch, just walking around, and it's maybe 10, 12 feet from where I'm standing down to the bottom of it. And there's nothing to see in there. I mean, it's just a ditch. But I turned to walk away, and I heard something in the leaves down in the ditch. I walked back up, peered over the edge, and about the time I looked over the edge, whatever this thing was came up out of the ditch right in front of me. But the unusual part of it, or the frightening part to me, was I couldn't see anything. I could see the effects it was having on things. It was kicking up leaves. It was bending trees and snapping tree branches way above my head, probably 6, 7, 8 feet. And it was tearing right at me. I can see the leaves in its wake. Well, once the paralysis broke, I ran back down the hill, screaming, crying. I was 8 years old at the time, and probably about a quarter mile away from the house or so. I was making such a racket, Josh, that my mother heard me coming and came out on the back porch to see what I'd done this time. And I ran past her, went in the house, and I think I hid under the bed or behind the couch or something. It really, really scared me. And about the time she got me calmed down, because I was just, gobsmacked. About the time she got me calmed down, my dad had got home from work, and my older brother, he didn't live with us at the time. He was already out on his own, but he had stopped by on his way home from work. They got there about the same time, and I'm still totally shaken up. So I'm trying to explain to them what I saw. And they walked up there. I wouldn't go too close to where it was, but they could see where something had come up out of the ditch and disturbed the leaves and bent and broke trees and things. And they were asking me, well, was it a bear? Was it a deer? Well, I'm naming off all these things, and I'm no. So all those things you could see. I mean, I'd spent a lot of time in the woods. We went to the Smokies often. I'd seen bear, not up real close, but I would have recognized any kind of animal. But there was absolutely nothing there. I mean, nothing. Not anything I could have mistaken for something, not something under the leaves, not something in the trees, but I could see the effects it was having on the trees and the leaves. And I stayed away from there for a long time. Not too long after that, maybe a few months, had a guy come home with me from school, my age, and I sent him up there. I said, go up there and look down in that ditch and see if you see anything. And I stayed down the hill and hid behind a tree. And I use him as bait. I sent him up there to see if it would get after him, but it didn't. And when I told my dad, my brother initially, they went up there, looked, nothing bothered them, didn't see anything, hear anything. Well, so I stayed away from there. We had 20-something acres there, so there was a lot of other places to play and mess around in the woods and build a fort or whatever I wanted to do. And then flash forward about 7 years later, I just turned 15, or was getting ready to turn 15, and we were getting ready to move from there. We had sold that property, and we're moving closer to the Carnes area where I'd go to high school. And I was just kind of out walking the woods not too long before we moved, kind of revisiting all those old childhood haunts, thinking, well, I'll never see them again, or if I do, it'll be under different circumstances. We won't own the property anymore. It'll be somebody else's. And I just kind of walked up there and looked down in the ditch again and stood there, and I thought, I wonder what scared me when I was a little kid. And Josh, as I turned to walk away, I heard a familiar noise. It was that same something in the leaves. And this, whatever it was heavy. I mean, I could feel the footfalls on the ground. It had some weight to it, just wasn't anything there. I spin around, same exact thing as 7 years prior. It's coming straight for me. The leaves are flying up in the air. The trees are getting knocked to and fro. Now, these were small trees, tree limbs and things. It wasn't disturbing the bigger trees. But again, absolutely nothing there that I could see. And I didn't run screaming and crying that time, but I didn't waste any time getting back down the hill. And that was the last time I've been there. That's been, about 43 years ago. Something like that. Long time. Long time ago. Now, flash forward another 6 or so years. I'm about 20, 21 years old. And I was working at a restaurant in West Knoxville, Cedar Bluff area. And guy that I worked with said, hey, there's a party down the road at this apartment complex after work tonight. You want to go? And I'm sure. I didn't know the guy other than from work. Didn't really know him at all. But I went to this party and didn't know anybody else there. And a bunch of people. There's probably 20 or 30 people there. And at some point, some of the girls that were there messing around behind or under the host couch and found a Ouija board. And they got the Ouija board out and they're messing around with it. So they decided to go around the room and ask people different questions, or have them ask a question to the board. When they got to me, I thought, well, I've got one for you. What scared me when I was a child? That's all I said. No backstory, no hints, no clue. The guy that I was with from work, I'd never told him the story. There was nobody there besides me that knew that story. Well, the Ouija board starts doing a little figure 8 infinity symbol thing, and it spells out WATERSPRITE. Water sprite. They look at me. I just kind of shrug my shoulders. I don't know. And they were laughing and saying, well, maybe it's thirsty. It wants some water or it wants a Sprite. But I didn't say anything else. They went on to somebody else. No, nothing interesting there to see, they didn't think. But now this was in the days before the internet. This was in the early to mid 80s. So the next day, I went to the library in Oak Ridge and went up to the reference librarian. And I said, what can you tell me about a water sprite? So she goes back in the stacks, and a few minutes later, she comes out with a stack of books. And she's got stuff about different kinds of elementals and creatures that live in the forest, types of fae and things like that. There's naiads and dryads. Dryads are the spirits of trees that live in the woods. They're the wood nymphs. They're portrayed as a female fairy-like creature. And then naiads are the guardians of the water. Same thing. They're a water nymph or a water sprite. And in the pictures, in the illustrations from the 1800s, whatever, it's portrayed like what you see as a fairy, with wings and gossamer gown and stuff on. And I thought about that, and we're not too far from where that ditch is, on around another part of the same property. I mean, you could see one from the other. There were 7 natural springs on that property. 6 of them came out of the sides of hills, and the 7th one was an artesian spring that came up out of the ground. So there was a lot of water in the area. So what better place for a water sprite to guard over than someplace like a 7? That's kind of a magical number, too. And that whole area was kind of strange. We used to find Civil War relics and things around the water there. And I believe that soldiers had stopped there to drink out of those springs and had probably been ambushed and killed right there. And there was also a story of hidden gold there. Some guys had robbed a stagecoach and supposedly hid some gold in that area.
Yeah, and so this happened, and you were living in eastern Tennessee?
Yes.
But when the Ouija board thing happened, what town were you living in?
I was still living in Knoxville, but just a different part. That was where that happened, was in the Solway community in West Knox County. And by that point, we had moved up to Carnes, and we're living in that part of Knox County. But yeah, according to the Ouija board, that's what it was. But it wasn't anything like it was pictured there. If it was some kind of elemental or a fae or a nymph, it was big and heavy and came stomping out of the woods and chased me away from there. But why it chased me, that's the thing that I've never understood. It never bothered anybody else. The people that I sent up there for bait, it didn't bother my dad, my brother, no one. And I don't know what it was about me, other than the fact that I've always had a connection with things in the supernatural and the paranormal from a young age. I saw a first full-body apparition when I was 5 going on 6. Mm-hmm. So, just I've always been in tune with things like that. My grandmother, self-proclaimed gypsy witch, I was her favorite child. She had 10 children, and out of all the grandchildren, I was her favorite. And it's because I was born with a caul over my face. Now, all that is the afterbirth. It happens. It's not that rare, but it happens occasionally. And or a veil. She called it a veil. She was there at my birth, and she said, "You're special. You were born with that veil over your face." And she would tell me that, you have second sight and you're able to do this, that, and the other. And she used to scare the absolute crap out of me when I was a kid because she looked like a witch. She was little and hunched over, had arthritis, so her fingers are all gnarled up. And, she passed away when I was 13. And by that time I, wasn't afraid of her stuff. And I wish I had at least another 13 years that I could have spent with her. She called herself a gypsy witch. I don't know where the gypsy part comes from, because she was born in the Cades Cove area of the Great Smoky Mountains there in Tennessee. I'm thinking somewhere back along the line there was some people from the old country. But, nowadays, in Appalachia in particular, she's what's known as a granny witch or kitchen witch. She just used whatever she had available to her for stuff. She did spells and potions and told fortunes. She read tea leaves, coffee grounds, and animal entrails, which I thought that was one of the weirdest things I'd ever heard when I was a kid. They had a dairy farm, and in addition to the milk cows and stuff, they also raised hogs, and they grew tobacco and produce and things like that, did truck farming. And it was just, I don't know where that whole thing about the animal entrails. Every year in the fall, when they'd slaughter hogs, she would pick out one before they started slaughtering that was hers. And when they got to that one, they would let her know. When they'd slaughtered it, when it was opened up, she would poke around inside of it with a stick. And whatever she saw in there, she would predict with some high degree of accuracy what the crops were going to be like in the next harvest season.
Wow.
And according to my uncles, all 9 of them, that she was at least as accurate as the Old Farmer's Almanac, maybe more so. And any country people, farmers and people that make their living like that, the Old Farmer's Almanac, that's like the Bible. That's the 2 books you have in every house, is a Bible and an Old Farmer's Almanac, because they plant with the signs, they watch, and they know what to plant, when to plant it, and what'll grow well that year and what won't. But she knew what she was doing in that regard. And I'd never heard of anybody that read coffee grounds either. I'd heard of tea leaves. Same concept. I think it's a form of pareidolia. You finish the cup and you turn it upside down on the saucer, and then she would see shapes in there. It's like, looking up in the clouds and seeing stuff. But again, she was amazingly accurate with a lot of that. And lady told me a story much later than life, when she was a teenage girl. Her and a couple other girls who were going to go see my grandmother and get their fortune told. And they had to walk 2 or 3 miles to get to her house. And the one girl was kind of mocking her, making fun of her, and saying, "Yeah, I don't believe in all that, but I'll go along with you two, and we'll see what happens." Well, they get there. She invites them in. They tell her they'd like to have their fortunes told, and she looks at the 2 girls and said, "Well, I'll tell yours and yours," and then points at the other girl and said, "But I won't tell yours because you don't believe in me." And she said, I wanted to dig a hole and crawl in it. So there's no way she could have known that. We walked and I'd said that miles back before we got to her house. And she did know things like that she had no way of knowing. The most memorable one that she ever pulled on me, when we would drive up to her house, she lived about 25, 30 miles away from where we did. There was a farmhouse that we had to go by where years before, some kids were playing ball in their front yard, and a young boy had ran out in the road chasing the ball and got hit by a car and killed. And whenever we drive by that place, I'd get just a weird, creepy feeling, like a I don't know, tingling sensation or something. So one time we were on the way up there, and I wasn't even paying attention. I was laying in the back seat of our car reading a comic book. This was in the probably late 60s, very early 70s. Didn't have to wear seatbelts and all that and stuff. I'm laying back there reading a comic book, and I felt that little chill, and I looked up. Sure enough, we're passing that house. I didn't say anything, but I thought about the little boy that got killed there and stuff. And we get on up to her house. We go inside. And granted, I hadn't said a word about that to my parents, never had. Didn't say anything to her about it. But she took me in her quilting parlor. She lived in a big old Victorian farmhouse, big 2-story affair. And what had once been a formal dining room, she'd turned that into a quilting room. Even though she had arthritis, she could still piece quilts. And her and one of my aunts, all summer they'd sit and cut out quilt pieces, and then during cold weather they would sit in there. There was a fireplace in that dining room. They would sit in there and piece quilts together all winter. But she took me in the quilting room and was, I don't know, telling me something. She had all these superstitions and sayings and little rhymes and stuff that she would teach me. But that night I wasn't really paying attention. She's like, no, you need to understand this because you feel things. And I kind of looked at her like, well, yeah, I have feelings. And she said, no, that's not what I mean. She said, you feel things like that spot in the road on the way here tonight. And my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, this old lady can read my mind. I wanted away from her. I wanted out of there. But again, there's little things like that would happen from time to time, and just scared the bejesus out of me. When you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you think somebody knows your thoughts, that's a scary place for a kid. But I was her favorite, and she would teach me these, the ways and the sayings and the superstitions and everything. And then she would buy my silence with usually a candy bar or sometimes a crisp dollar bill or something like that. Don't tell the others. There were other cousins that lived on the property up there in different houses, and I wasn't supposed to say anything to them because they didn't have the second sight or whatever you want to call it.
So, Steve, let me ask you this. You've had a lot of weird experiences, but you've also done a lot of work on other people's experiences. We're going to get into that in a second. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about on that. But you lived in Las Vegas, which is pretty cool. I stayed there for a little while. You stayed in a haunted house, yeah?
Yeah. I think I was there for about 3 years in that particular house. I was in Vegas for about 7, almost 8 years all the way together. But I had a photography business out there, and one of the girls that I'd hired to do some modeling, I did like print, catalog work, products for websites, things like that, fashion. And she wanted to do some portfolio work, and she said, come over to my house and do it. And normally I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go to anybody's house, and I wouldn't have them in my house because I had a studio. But that night she wanted to shoot there. She just moved in this house, and I went over there. I mean, I trusted her. I'd worked with her a lot before. And this house was built in the 1930s. And where it was at that time, of course, there was no strip in Vegas until the 40s. There was downtown that had been there for years and years at that point. But where this house was in the 1930s, it was out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't even close to downtown. It would just been out in the desert. And went over there and did some updates on her portfolio or lookbook, and I got to looking around. It's just a huge house, and she'd been engaged to this guy. They went in, got the house together, and then he took off, or she ran him off or something like that. I think he a little bit of a philanderer, but I'm like, wow, this is a really nice place. And she showed me around, and some of the amazing things, like Went downstairs. Went down a few stairs. There was a landing. Then you went down some more stairs, and then at the bottom of those stairs, as you entered the basement, there was a bookshelf in the wall. She's like, "Look at this." She pushes the bookshelf. It swings open, and there's a hidden room back there. It was just a bare concrete room with a drain in the middle of the floor. And I thought, that's kind of strange, and looked out, had some more stuff. It had a big walkout basement and really nicely landscaped backyard. And it was probably 4,000 square foot house, good size house. And I'm like, this would make a good studio down here. And she said, "I'll rent it to you." I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I can afford it." And the price she named me, it was just a few $100s more a month than what I was paying for my apartment and my photography studio. So I took her up on it, moved in. All my stuff was downstairs. Now we had common areas in the kitchen and the living room upstairs. She was gone most of the time anyway. She was a promotional model and professional game show contestant. Actually did pretty good at some stuff. But started noticing right after I moved in that there was something weird about that house. And one thing in particular, the one bathroom upstairs had a big Roman tub in it, a big soaking tub. And anytime that I was the only one there and I went in there to take a nice soak in the tub, it would sound like somebody was dragging a garbage can full of car parts or something, just this awful noise, dragging it up and down the wood hallway there. And I'd get out and dry off, put on a robe, go out there, nothing. Couldn't find anything. That happened several times, and I finally just got to where I ignore it. And another time I was having a photo shoot there since I was using the basement as my studio. And some of the girls got freaked out. They said they heard somebody whispering in their ear upstairs in the den. And first they thought it was one of the other girls. It was saying things like, "Well, you're not pretty enough to be a model," and things like that. So they're kind of shunning this one girl, and she's in tears. And I went to the other two. They were a pair of twin sisters, and I said, "What'd you all say to her?" And they're like, "Well, nothing, but she was saying weird stuff to us." And then about that time, another girl that was there, when I had one of those portfolio events, I'd have like maybe 10 models over and have a makeup artist and a hair guy and a DJ and catered event, and just kind of turned it into a party. Well, this other girl comes running into the kitchen and she's like, "I was in the living room by myself and somebody whispered something in my ear." So looked more into that. And another time I was out at Red Rock Canyon on a location shoot, and my roommate was there, and she called me. I said I'd been out there since daybreak. I was doing something as the sun came up, and she called me on my cell phone, and she said, "Have you got something going on downstairs?" I'm like, "No, I'm out in the desert. I've been here since before daylight." And she said, "Well, I heard something down there." And she said, "I know how sometimes you kind of have a party or whatever." She said, I was up in the kitchen, just got up, was having some juice. And said, I heard people talking down there, like low voices, murmuring. And then it sounded like they were maybe singing or chanting or something. She said, I walked down the stairs on the first landing and saw that it was dark down there. Could still kind of hear it. Went all the way down. And she said, just as I hit the bottom landing and flipped on the light, it went totally silent. And another thing about that house, downstairs it had the room that I used as a bedroom. There was like a window in the wall that went over into another room that looked like a vestibule in a church or something. There was an arch in there kind of set back in the wall, and then other things set in the wall to like where you'd put candelabras or something. And anyway, I'm like, no, I'm out at Red Rock. And she's like, can I come out there? She's like, I don't want to be here right now. So she came out and hung out with me, and she didn't really, even then, after having that experience, she didn't really believe the house was haunted. But one day I was standing out with a mailbox. I've got a habit. If I've got some interesting mail, I'll stand there and open it and read it while I'm at the mailbox. I was out there looking at my mail, and I kind of felt somebody staring at me. I turned around, there's this old man standing there just staring a hole at me, and or hole in me. And I'm like, yes, can I help you? And he said, "Oh, forgive me for staring," he said, "but I just wondered what kind of person could live in that house." And I'm like, wait a minute, excuse me? And then this guy, he'd lived on that street since the 50s. And he started telling me about the background of the house. It had indeed been a mafia safe house back in the days before the strip or anything like that. The mafia still had a presence out there. And he told me about that. So I think there were probably people that went into that concrete room with a drain there and never came back out, at least not in one piece. And then he also told me that during the 70s, there was some kind of cult that lived there that held church services, some kind of worship services. So there was all kinds of stuff there, and lights would turn off and on. My roommate's dog would have experienced some kind of paralysis in the hallway, like where I heard the trash can dragging. I was sitting in the living room one night working on something. I hear this just ungodly howl. It sounds like a banshee or something. I go down the hall. The little dog is just standing there, and it's like he's frozen. He can't move, and he's letting out this just hair-raising howl. And his name was Stubby. And I'm like, "Stubby, come on. What's the matter, buddy? What is it? What is it?" And nothing. And then finally, it's just like the paralysis broke, and he tore past me and went in the living room. And he actually got to the point where he wouldn't come out of her bedroom and go down the hallway. He would come out, go down the stairs, go out the doggy door, go outside, go around to the front door, come in the other doggy door, and go in the kitchen to eat. He would not walk in that hallway up there. Well, now after that, the incident I told you there with the girls, the model shoot, the two sisters, they wanted to hold a seance. So I blocked out some time that I was going to use for a shoot, and I said, well, "Okay, well, I'll hire you all to model this. I think it was some shoes or something that I was shooting that time, or some kind of fashion stuff." And I said, "We'll do that Friday night. Then after the shoot, we'll have a seance." And they wanted to have it in that hidden room. So after the shoot that Friday, and I was just all week, I was excited about it. We go in there. And they brought all this stuff with them. They had black candles and salt, and the one drew a circle on the floor with salt, and gave us very specific instructions to stay within the circle, that was the only way we'd be safe, and we couldn't leave the circle until she had broken the circle and made a doorway in the salt. All these little arcane rules and stuff. But while we were in there, she lit the candles, and they were using a Ouija board. And they were calling the spirits of the house, and they did get one guy that claimed that he had been murdered in that room, but he wouldn't give us any more information. He would just, I'm no snitch. He wouldn't give up that much. And there were some other spirits and things that they'd contacted there. And while we're all in there, there was like a puff of wind. In this room, there was just the one door in and out. The bookshelf, the bookcase, bare concrete room. There's no vents. There's no anything in there besides a tiny little bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Well, all of a sudden, a candle that they had burning there, it blew out. So we're sitting there in total darkness in this tiny little room where we think somebody's been murdered, or maybe several people. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I know that when I go over to the bookshelf, it's not going to open, and we're going to be stuck in here, and they'll find skeletons in here eventually. But the girl went ahead, and she closed whatever she was doing into the circle, broke the circle, opened the doorway, and thankfully the door did open, and we got out. I wouldn't be sitting here now. But it was an interesting house. There was things like that all the time. We'd hear stuff walking on the roof, hear the water turning on and off in the kitchen. Things would move around. Things would apport. I would lose something, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later find it sitting in the middle of the bed where I knew it hadn't been just a few moments ago. Would hear in the hallway, the one that scared the dog, and I heard the metal and stuff. I'd also hear what sounded like somebody dropped a handful of change, and the coins were rolling down the hall. And occasionally would even find a nickel or a dime. One time I found a quarter. So it was a strange place to live. But whatever it was, it didn't seem to to harm me. It didn't like me being there, but I'm like, don't have any place else to go, so we're just going to have to cohabitate. But one of the weirdest other things that happened, I had suit jackets that I wore for my photography stuff, and I had them all. They were all black, and I had them all lined up on a coat rack in the, which was a dowel between two shelves in the bedroom. One night, I just laid down, I turned out the light, and I heard boom, something hit the floor. I turned the light back on, and every one of my suit jackets, the rod, dowel, and all, were laying in the floor. So I picked it back up, put it up there, checked it, then it was sitting in these two little U-shaped holders. Turned out the light, here it hit the floor again. Turned on the light, there's all my jackets still on the rod, laying in the floor. I thought, okay, this is BS. I've had enough. I went in my workshop there, got some big wood screws and a power drill, and actually drilled through the sides of the shelf into the dowel so that it couldn't come out of the holder unless you took the screws out. And I was just like, okay, there you go. Now what are you going to do? Turn off the light. I hear stuff hit the floor. I'm like, no, you got to be kidding. Turn the light on. This time, the dowel is still in the hooks where I'd screwed it in there, but every single suit jacket is laying in the floor, just like something had picked them up and laid them out in a line, like one on top of the other. And I'm like, okay, fine. If you want them on the floor, they can stay on the floor. And then the next morning when I got up, I actually took them and put them in the laundry room and hung them up in there and didn't have any problem. But whatever was in that room didn't like me hanging my jackets in there, apparently.
Yeah. And I apologize, Steve. My eyes are burning like really bad. They've been burning since I've been in the studio. And so I'm like messing with my eyes, folks. I'm not trying to distract anybody, but my eyes are really, really burning. It's been like that since I got here. I'm just trying to get some relief here, man. Oh, gosh. That Las Vegas thing is weird because I did a whole show on Supernatural Sin City, is what it was called. And it was all about different things that happen to people in and around Las Vegas. One of the things that we talked about last night, and people were mentioning it in the chat, we talked about all kinds of things the last couple of conversations we've had, but I wanted everybody to know that Steve's going to be at the conference, the Dogman conference, on August 12th and 13th. He's going to be there on the 12th for the VIP. So if you buy a VIP ticket, you'll get to meet Steve. Maybe if you get a general admission ticket too. I mean, but there's going to be a lot going on the 13th, so we'll see what happens. But definitely looking forward to hanging out with you in person up there at the conference.
Yeah, I can't wait. Looking forward to meeting everybody there. I like the whole idea of the meet and greet the night before. I'll have some stuff with me that I'm going to give away too, so come find me if you're at the conference.
Yeah, that sounds great. I wanted to get into something with you. We had talked, now going back to what you said about this water sprite. When I read that part of the book, I was laying in bed and I looked over to my wife. I said, "Oh my gosh!" And I scared her. She was like watching TV, and it was actually what she was watching was a weird show. It's called From. I don't know if anybody's been watching that or whatever, but it is a weird show. It's kind of like The Walking Dead and Lost together, and it is actually from the people that make those shows. So anyway, it makes sense. So I kind of startled her, and we were laying in bed, and she goes, "What?" And I said, "Dude, this is crazy." And so I told her about the water sprite. About 2 years ago, if anybody remembers, on my Halloween episode, I talked about a water spirit, a woman who had been apparently she was coming into. Let's back up. I'm going to get into the whole thing or whatever, but there was a spirit that was coming into an office. And I don't know, a lot of people have heard this story already, but a guard that I used to work with encountered this thing. It was a female, and it turned out that she had been drowned or whatever. But when I was gearing up to do that show, I was talking to my brother's, his son's mother's sister's husband. So it's like so the easier way to say it'd be my nephew's uncle on his mother's side. That would have been his mother's brother-in-law. And so anyway, he works with us, and he was telling me a story about somebody jumping into the swimming pool the night before Thanksgiving when he had a bunch of friends there, and family there, and they saw something splash up into the pool, and they were like, "What the heck is that?" You know. And so while we were telling these stories about the water, we were talking about the water because he said that after I told him about the guy encountering the spirit that was in the pool at that apartment complex. He told me that story. Well, while we were sitting there, it was in October, and it had been like kind of humid or whatever, and it rained or whatever. So the window fogged up, but not like it didn't happen like, you know, it wasn't like real. It was like real quick. Like it wasn't like we had just been sitting there talking forever because we had the windows down and it started to drizzle, whatever, so we rolled them up. And we were just sitting there talking about this paranormal stuff, whatever. And then the windows fogged up quickly, like really quickly. It was weird. And so while we were talking, the word feweth appeared on the windshield on the driver's side, like I told you, Steve. And I didn't know what it was. I kept trying to read it. I said, it looks like a word, like somebody had written it, you know. And so, and like they had written it from the driver's side with like a finger or something. And it said feweth. And so we looked it up, and it was like some school or something, I don't know, and it didn't make any sense. And I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Why is that word there? But that place was haunted. We had some weird stuff happen in that place. But what was even weirder still was what we found out. Like the next day, my friend had gone out to my truck, and he looked. I showed him. I said, watch this. So I let the windows fog up, you know, and I said, check it out. You know, there's a word right there. And then when he read it, he said, you know, he said, well, what does it mean? I said, I don't know. It's just if F-U-A, or I said F-U-E-T-H. I thought that's what it was. And he looked at the E and he said, that's not an E. If you look at it, it's just, it didn't have a full top. It's like it's an old A, you know, like you know what I'm talking about? And he said, that's not an E, that's an A. And so I said, okay. It's not like an A like this, but like, you know, how they do it in, you know, in like books and stuff, you know. And so he said the A, it's like you would see right here, it says cedar trees and mold R. See the A right there? It was an A like that, but I couldn't see it real good. And he said, that's an A. So he looked it up. I have it right here. It says, a feweth is a Scottish Gaelic pronunciation, fewa, looks like here. And it says here, it is a class of malevolent spirits in the Scottish Highland folklore, water spirits.
Wow.
And so when he said it was an A, I go, okay, well, let me look that up, because it looked like an E, but when I got closer, and I'm farsighted, so that's why I got to wear glasses to read the stuff, you know. And so it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it, and I was like, dude, so was something listening to us talk about these other spirits and just was telling us, hey, those are water spirits, by calling them feweth? Was it telling us that? I mean, what, or you know,
that would kind of stand to reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can think that it could have been. You know, Corley, thank you for that donation. It says, I've had a similar experience with an invisible entity coming up out of a ditch in Illinois. Wow.
You know, we were talking about that last night with Barton. There's something about ditches. Mm-hmm. I've talked to so many people, and there's several stories in Strange Things in the Woods of people that had stuff happen in or near ditch. I've had that experience. How was it? It was said last night. We said it's like a scar in the earth, and something about that, where it's opposing sides to the ditch that's not natural. It's been cut through there or made through there. Then it causes some sort of reaction, focuses the energy or something. Mm-hmm. There's something really, really weird about ditches.
Yeah, we were talking about that because my encounter happened. It was in a ditch. Like when I saw what I saw, I was 15. That wolf-like entity was sitting in a ditch, and so when it was shocking to me when you pointed that out to me the first time we talked, and it was weird because I went and I looked into that, and a lot of these cases, that's something I totally did not even like put two and two together. Like a lot of them, these things are standing in a ditch. I had one out of Hyco, Texas, with the Dogman. and they were standing in a ditch, and it was a steep drop-off ditch over a gravel road outside of Hyco, Texas, and they look over, and there they were standing in the ditch, like these two creatures. I mean, it was like,
story in there of two guys that saw a little man, like a gnome type creature, duende or whatever you want to call it, a little 2 feet tall person in a ditch glaring at him, and it ran up the bank on the other side. And somebody else found a little carving of a cat in a hole in the side of a ditch, like under some tree roots, that turned out to be cursed. They took it home and left it in their pants, put it in the closet, and then they heard all this commotion going on in their closet, flung open the door and moved their clothes around, and that little cat carving came rolling out.
Wow.
And he took it and put it in the garage, and then the next morning when it was daylight, took it and put it back in the little hidey hole where he'd found it.
Yeah.
So you never know. There's something. I don't know. Somebody in the chat there said that when you think of it, it's an inverted pyramid.
I was just about to read that.
That focuses the energy there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it says here, Wendy says ditches divert water. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there you go with the water. I mean, it's weird. Like when you said, now, here's another thing that happened to me. And this wasn't some really long, it wasn't some amazing thing or whatever, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on the show at some point in time. But I was working out at a job site in an area near Del Valle, and I had a weird experience. I was out there by myself, and the week before I had a guard that had told me that something weird had happened to him, that he literally, something moved his truck, and he was sitting there in his truck, and it was a construction site, and he's out there by himself. And he was like, what the heck was that? And he started looking around. He looked in his mirrors. He didn't see anything. And it had pushed his truck on both sides, The first time it was like toward the back of the truck. Second time it was a little further, like kind of right behind him, right behind the back seat, the driver's side back seat. And so he said that he felt that the truck moved, and then he heard like footsteps kind of plodding, whatever. And then something walked through the Johnson grass, and the grass parted. Okay, and I thought, well, that's weird. I never liked being out there, and I never felt completely comfortable out there. And there was this wilderness around there, and then there was Bergstrom Airport was across the street. Now, there was a ton of stories on the other side of Bergstrom Airport, which used to be the Air Force Base, and I had heard tons of reports of Bigfoot in that area. Just south of Bergstrom, I was getting reports, and then from there all the way down to Lockhart, and then from there to Seguin, there were different reports I would get, Dogman and Bigfoot reports, and so I thought that it was weird because I know that in Palmetto State Park, which is even further south from there. That's where a lot of people see these cloaking Bigfoots. Like people, they don't see them, but they see that. You know what I'm talking about? See that predator look. Like
some people call it the Glimmer Man.
The Glimmer Man, yeah. Yeah, I did one.
Predator, creature, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we call it the Shimmering Phantom, I guess, and Anthony named it because he didn't want to call it Glimmer Man. Because that's kind of what I wanted to call it, but there's a movie called The Glimmer Man, so I was like, I guess we probably don't want to, And so it was just like that. Then plus, I don't really like, the person that played in that movie, Steven Seagal. When Steven Seagal was in The Glimmer Man, he's so annoying, dude. He's just like a goofy.
I'm telling you. Now, I had an encounter with something like that in downtown Portland several years ago. Powell's City of Books is a bookstore we have here in Portland. It's the largest independent brick and mortar bookstore in the world. Takes up like a couple city blocks. It's several stories tall. You walk in there, they hand you a map to find your way around to the different sections and stuff. And they have a lot of authors and book signings, things like that. And I'd been to something down there late one night and just taking my time getting back home, and there was a train that I had to catch, the orange line that would take me back to my neighborhood where I could catch a bus to get the rest of the way home. And I was just kind of hanging out on the transit mall there at this train stop, and nobody around, nobody there. And I'm just kind of looking in the windows and wandering around. It's about 20 minutes before the train comes. And I walked up kind of to the corner, and there was a signpost there, and like one of those permanent garbage cans that's set in the ground, and they have to take the top off of it and take the can out of it to empty it. Well, I saw what looked like heat shimmering right there behind that. And I thought, well, that's weird, because this was in the summertime and it wasn't, I thought, was there something hot down there? Is there steam coming out of the ground? Is there a vent or a grating or something there? So I walked over to where I could see there's nothing there but concrete. But when I walked over and looked in that direction, whatever it was, which wasn't very tall to begin with, it was only about maybe 4.5 feet tall. It just kind of squatted down. I could see the whole thing kind of move. And it was like they described there. It looked like heat on pavement or coming off pavement. It looked like maybe you're looking through saran wrap. And it just kind of squatted down. And I'd read Cameleo by Robert Guffey. And, he claims that it's some sort of technology that our military has, which that wouldn't surprise me, but who knows where they got it from. But I thought, this isn't good. Every hair on my neck stood up. So I just thought, well, I don't want to run because whatever it is might chase me. So I just kind of, ambled around. And then I walked up to the street there, to the corner right where it was, because I would have had to walk by it to go the other way. And when the light changed and the traffic started to move, I actually ran out into traffic as an excuse to run, and then darted across. And then, all the cars are moving behind me, then ran on up the sidewalk several blocks, 5 or 6 blocks, to the next train stop. And they were thankfully people waiting there for the train, and I stayed there where they were. But that was my last foray into downtown Portland, well, prior to all the madness that's gone on down there in the last couple of years with the riots and the protesting and stuff. But anytime after that, I didn't wait for a bus or train. If I went to Powell's late at night, I'd take an Uber home or something like that. But no idea what it was, but it was frightening, and it knew that I saw it, because then when it kind of squatted down there, I'm thinking, okay, if it springs on me, there's nobody around here. I don't know, I'm kind of wondering if whatever it is that possesses that skill or that technology, if it has the ability to cloak you. We cover a lot of these missing person cases where people are just there literally 1 second and gone the next. Somebody in their hiking party will turn around, turn back, the person's gone. Nobody saw them disappear. Nobody saw them leave. But it's something that has that ability, whether it's a cryptid or some sort of creature from outer space or from another time or dimension. Does it have the ability, like if it grabs you, does it cloak you too, or does it have something it can throw around you? Something to think about. That's the kind of stuff that rattles around in my head when I don't sleep at night. I'm lifelong insomniac, and that's the kind of crap I think about.
Well, Steve, you were telling me you only get about 4 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, that's in a good night. That's split up. I normally about daylight, I'll lay down for a couple of hours, then get up and work. I try to read for so many hours a day and write for so many hours a day, and then I record for the Missing Persons and Mysteries. We just passed 188,000 subscribers. Mm-hmm. I'm just, I'm not worthy. Yeah. But people love the channel, love what we're doing. I want to thank everybody that came to see me here, to listen to me here tonight. I put a post over there. But I make the most of it. When I did work normal jobs, now all I do is YouTube and write books. But when I did work normal jobs, I worked basically 2 full-time jobs all my adult life. And that way I was able to have a lot of experiences and do a lot of things. And, I made the most of it. That's, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. If you can't sleep, find something to do. Yeah. Write a book, start a podcast, start a YouTube channel.
And you did both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Steve, we'd been trying to hook up for a couple years. It seemed like we were constantly
kept missing each other.
And then, and
I'm
finally
so happy to be here. Hopefully, it won't be 2 years before the next time I come on.
No, because we're going to do a set together.
Looking forward to that conference.
Yeah, and we're going to do a set together that's going to be for the Friday podcast, so the podcast people can listen to that. And so, but everybody that's here tonight, I'm glad that you show up. I try to get people from the podcast to come and show up in the YouTube, but it's a special group of people that show up for the YouTube. So here's another thing I wanted to say. That experience that I had out there in Del Valley. Now, I was telling you about it last night. I was sitting there in my truck, and I had something walking around and around my truck, and I kept hearing what, you know how like a dog says their paws when they hit the concrete. My dogs, when they walk on the concrete, the little feet, you can hear the, you know.
Yeah.
And I heard that whatever it was sounded bipedal, but I couldn't see it. I absolutely did not see anything. And then I heard something to the right of me because there was no wind. It was real quiet, you know. And something went off into the bushes, and I saw the bushes move. Same thing that the guy that worked the week before, this guy Felipe, and he, you know, he told everybody his name was Philip, but it was crazy. Like, I mean, you know, I talked to him one day, and I said, hey, you know, can you go back over what you said happened to you? Because he had told it, I think, to my brother or somebody. And so I asked him about it, and I said, can you tell me? And he did. And his story was it was compelling that it happened to him too. But he even went so far as to say that there was like a weird smell, like he said it was like a sickly sweet smell that he smelled. I didn't get that. I don't remember smelling anything. But yeah, he said that there was some weird stuff there. Somebody was in this chat, and they said something about seeing gnomes in a ditch. And I lost who it was that said that. If you're there, come out and say it again, because then I'd like to talk to you, because we got into that last night with Barton. We started talking about the little people,
yeah,
and the Duende. And so when I was at the conference, at the Bigfoot conference with Lyle Blackburn, he started to talk to me, and we talked about a book called Into the Big Thicket, and it talks about this case out of Lake Cato. Into the Big Thicket is. I think the author's name was Rob Riggs or something like that, but I read it years ago. And he talks about the East Texas, the Big Thicket area. So there's all these like weird anomalies and stuff, even spook lights and stuff that people see and that have witnessed out there. And one of the stories out of there was this supposedly Native Americans that roam around out there still that live like they're from, you know, the old days. I mean, like, you know, like the Conestoga wagons, you know. And one of them shot a guy in the leg, and I believe it was in that book. And he was a telephone worker out there in Lake Cato in East Texas in the thicket. And the thicket is one of only two places in the country that's considered jungle, the other one being the swamp in Florida. So it is a very thick, heavily wooded place. And it's also notoriously haunted, and that was one of the stories that I'd gotten out of there. Was of they were these little people. They were like native looking people, but they were really tiny, and I was like compelled by that story. And I know that you and me and Barton were talking about it last night. We were talking about these little people, and it was pretty compelling, some of the things that we were discussing. One of the things that you had said you were interested in was these little people, the stories. And so I was going to ask you, do you have any stories about that you would like to go over?
There are stories of little people in the Smokies. The Cherokee have legends. I can't remember the Cherokee word for it, but it translates to literally to little person. And they claim that they were there when the Cherokee arrived. Same with big hairy creatures too. So a lot of this stuff, you know, the Bigfoot and the little people and all that, it all kind of connects together, and it's all a part of the Fae. If you look into the Fae stuff out of the Celtic countries, where it was almost, and some places still is, almost a religion to these people. They talked about all the different Fae and the hierarchy, and there's kings and queens and royalty, and, you know, goblins and pixies and all these different things. And they talked about, you know, the hairy giants, which are connected with the Fae. They talked about little men in a horseless buggy that came out of the sky. That's a UFO story, you know, in 1800s, 1700s Ireland. So I think, and to me, then, and this is just my thinking, my postulating here, but the Fae theory kind of ties everything together, because it's all falls under the framework of the Fae. And I've had people, you know, they believe in UFOs, they believe in Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever. But then you mention the Fae, they kind of snicker at you. He's talking about fairies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because we've been brainwashed into thinking, everything's Disneyfied. We see a fairy as, some little thing like Tinkerbell that flits around and then spreads fairy dust. When the majority of them were evil, they're mean, they stole babies, they caused people to get lost in the woods and things. Those fairy lanterns, fairy lights that they see in the Smokies, the majority of the time, those led people astray. Occasionally, you'll hear about somebody that they actually led out of the woods, but I had a guy that I knew, I think his uncle or his cousin was hunting out a season in the Smokies, and this is back in the days, the old carbide miner's lamps that you wore on a hat. He'd run out of carbide and didn't have any light left, and he saw what he thought was another hunter or somebody with a lantern, and he followed them, and he said, we watched the lantern go across this little area, and then when he crossed it, he fell off like a 12, 15-foot bluff there, and messed his legs up real good, jabbed his hunting rifle in the ground and filled the barrel full of dirt. But he said, I watched that light like somebody walk across this gap. I didn't realize there was a gap there. Pew, I went right off of it. And now I know you've got some spook lights there in Texas. I've never seen those, but I've been over into North Carolina and seen the Brown Mountain lights. And that's one of the strangest aerial phenomena I've ever seen over there. And it's not always way up in the sky. Sometimes it's down among the trees over there on the other side of Wiseman's Gorge. I've seen them come up. Yeah, Sean's got it there. The Young Wait to Sunday. That's the Cherokee little people. But I've seen those lights come up out of the gorge there, fly up over your head into the trees. Sometimes it's different colors. Sometimes they'll split into multiple lights and then go back together. Strange place over there. If you're close to Brown Mountain, North Carolina, go over there, especially in the summertime. I've never once went that I didn't see the lights at least for a little while. Tend to be more active around between midnight and 2 a.m. And when it's just a little misty or maybe a little rainy, they seem to be more active. But they've never disappointed me.
Yeah, I know that it's two places that have spook lights in Texas. In East Texas, it's Saratoga, and then in West Texas, it's Marfa.
Marfa, yeah, I've read a lot about the Marfa light. And there's one in the Ozarks, too, that's real famous, the Hornet light down there. I've talked to people that have seen that. And a lot of times they'll be somehow connected with an old railroad or a railroad that's out of commission. And I read a real interesting theory one time. If you look at the way those rail beds are put together with different kinds of rock and things, that there may be something in there, like if you believe the stone tape theory, where certain kinds of quartz and granite and things like that can record, and then under the proper whatever conditions they are, sort of play it back. So that's where you get these hauntings that are not an intelligent haunting or anything like that, but it looks like just the same thing over and over. And if you think about that, all recording tape that's magnetic, that's ferrous oxide on a piece of mylar, and the heads record on it, and then the playback heads play it back. So I think something like that could exist in nature. If you look at the properties of quartz and other crystals like that, I mean, a lot of watches use quartz for the movement and things. So same when I was in Cub Scouts years and years and years ago, we made a crystal radio, out of a nail and a piece of copper wire and a piece of quartz and a razor blade. And, it wasn't very good, but you could pick up reception. You could pick up AM radio transmissions with it. Foxhole radio, they called them during World War I and II.
Yeah, here's something interesting, Steve. And for the listeners at home, you guys can check this out. Okay, it says here, Marfa to Saratoga is 10 hours. Okay. And if you look at it's almost like the highway you would take would go like this, or it'll go like this. But they're straight across from each other. They're on the same latitude as each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think there's a lot of stuff that's probably like that if you took the time to sat down and plotted out. Now you have that in the UK in particular. You have the ley lines that connect all those ancient sites, and you can see one from another from the air. I think we have that here, and those lines are, there's some kind of earth energy there, some kind of, whether it's natural as in geomagnetic or something a little more supernatural. There is a credence. There is a truth to a lot of that things tend to be along the same lines and same latitude or longitude.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like when you look at like how they line up, I mean, there's got to be something to that, dude. I mean, I don't know. I just can't. I can't think that why would they line up like that? I mean, that's just so weird. There's got to be something to the ley lines and all the other things.
There's so much we don't understand. And if you look, at string theory and some of that stuff that teaches that every living thing has some kind of connection, I think it does to an extent. And we've lost that. I think, we've gotten so technologically advanced that we've forgotten a lot of the skills and things that our ancestors had and needed to survive back in those days. We've gotten soft. Imagine if the grid went down and the internet disappeared. What would most people do?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to David the other day, Weatherly, and he was laughing about this guy. They were up in the mountains, up in the Appalachians, and he was with some people who, one of them, they were working for some sort of production thing or whatever, and the guy could not get reception. And he began to panic to the point where he almost had like a freaking panic attack. And then, we were laughing about it because it's like, dude, I mean, like, you're that weak that if you don't have your phone dude, I used to ride my bike through the trails in, Rockdale, Texas, full of huge, big, tall trees everywhere, and just big forest. And I got lost out there once or twice, but I didn't have no phone, and I didn't have, this was in the 80s, early 80s, or mid 80s, I guess. I was like 1984, 85. I was riding my bike out there as a kid, and I wasn't like, you wanted to use the phone to call mom and dad. You had to go to somebody's house and be like, and I would be like out in the trails, and I'd go, dude, I was supposed to call my mom at 4, And I'm like, it's 5, and I'm so far from anywhere to call. There's no cell phone.
Oh, I used to do that. We used to ride our bikes for miles and miles, and just parents didn't know where we were, didn't have any idea. But just time seemed safer back then, or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Different.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Maybe 5-10 miles, and we'd ride like from the area where I lived over to where we went to elementary school. And that was 3 miles each way, and anything could have happened between a country road. There's no shoulder or anything. You just take off on your Schwinn Stingray and let the cars watch out for you. Yeah. But
well, you were talking about that in your book. Your Schwinn Stingray was better than any Huffy or BMX, right? That you said it was. You could get it done without those dirt bikes that we had when we got a little older.
Yeah, I've jumped things and rode it through the fire, and used to build a fire and ride our bikes through it or try to jump over it. Because Evel Knievel was big when I was a kid, and we all tried to emulate him.
Yeah. But Knievel. Yeah, I remember. I had one of those. I had the little pullback guy, and he flew, went up. It was like I think I got it from like a cousin of mine. He gave it to me as he got too old. He was like, I don't play with this anymore. And so he gave it to me, and I played with that thing all the time, man. The Evel Knievel was cool, man.
Like had a little wheel on it that you put the motorcycle in there, and then you rev it up real fast and hit the button, and then it would take off.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Same thing.
Yeah,
okay.
and then it would fly, and it had like a little ramp thing. I remember, and it would go, Yeah, it was pretty cool, but then those things never work the way you want them to either. Like it's like the Super Ball. Like you bounce it one time, and then you're getting on your bike to go look for it, and you're like, dude.
Yeah, I had one of those really big ones, about the size of a baseball.
Oh wow!
And I slammed it on the sidewalk in front of the house one day, and it went over the top of the house, and I couldn't find it, and then when I finally found it, it was when my dad hit it with a lawnmower. And kapow, and it put a big dent in the garage door. And I was like, what was that? And he stopped the mower and got off and looked. It's my Super Bowl. He like shaved the top of it off, about the top quarter of it.
I never had one that big.
After that, you bounce and it would go wild. You didn't know which way it was going to bounce with a flat edge to it like that.
Yeah, I had one of them. I had a really cool one that was like had like it was cleared of the different colors in it. And I bounced it real high. You know, my sister, they were older than me. They tricked me. How high can you bounce that? And I'll go, watch. And it would go, and then it would be gone down the street. And then I'm looking through the weeds for this thing, dude. And yeah, I remember one time I was digging through the weeds and I had my hand and I touched something and it felt like it was furry or something. And I pulled my hand back. And when I did, I guess I held on to it for a second and it was a tarantula.
Oh man!
And I was actually looking for that, and it was like one of those weird looking, like kind of light brown beige looking on top, and then they had like the black legs looking things. I was like, what the heck? And I picked it up and I chunked it in the air, and I was like, I jumped back. I was like, well, I'm not getting that ball. And my parents were like, you're just gonna lose it anyway, so they quit buying them from me. I'd be like, can I have a quarter for that? Nope.
Yeah, we used to take them out of the road, in the asphalt road there, and you could get them as higher than the telephone lines.
Mm-hmm.
But again, yeah, once they bounced and went in the weeds, pretty much that was the end of that Super Bowl.
And I remember we had a Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah.
And then I had a Silly Putty, things you just don't, the kids don't play with any of that stuff nowadays, but I had all that. And I ruined some baseball cards doing that. I was like, I want to make the face of the, whatever, and because it takes the ink off. And so it basically
that's one of the things they advertise. You get the Sunday funnies and pull the colored cartoons off there and then stretch their faces and make them look all weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a Don Mattingly rookie card, and I learned that was not a good idea. So it was like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. But so one of the things we were talking about with last night when we had the great conversation, and it was so cool to hear you and Barton talking back and forth, and you even talked about some books. I believe that was it Frank Edwards?
Frank Edwards, those were, when I was about 10 years old, they reprinted those, Stranger Than Science and Stranger Than Fiction or something like that was the other one.
I remember.
And they had, like you talked about, one of them had an orange cover and one of them
had a red cover, and then our logo
paperback library. I think they were like 75 cents or 79 cents or something like that. Found those at the old Rexall drugstore there in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and those were like almost like the Bible to me, because he had all these weird stories and all these places. And the guy had written about UFOs, and then he'd written about cryptids and flying saucer serious business. I think that was one of his. And then from there, I found Jim Brandon. His book, Weird America, that came out in 78. And that was another one. By that point, I was getting old enough to, I want to go to these places and things. And later on, I did use that one as a travel guide to go to a lot of these places. And later on, discovered, of course, Charles Fort. He started a lot of it. I think without Charles Fort, there wouldn't be a lot of these people.
Oh, absolutely.
So kind of went backwards there to find Fort. Going forward, I found John Keel. And some of his stuff was just so far out there, all these mysterious creatures from time and space. And, of course, the Mothman prophecies. And Keel was just something else. And then if you've ever seen the old TV show with Darren McGavin, The Night Stalker, that was based on Keel. Mm-hmm. That character.
Now, the interesting thing about John Keel, you actually ate dinner with John Keel.
I did. It was in, I want to say like 90, 91, 92, somewhere around in there. Ron Bonds, a friend of mine that lived just outside Atlanta, a place called Avondale Estates, Georgia. He had a publishing company, really small thing that he ran out of his garage called Illuminate Press. And he also had a BBS at the time. That's a bulletin board system. It's what we did before the internet. You would actually use your computer to call somebody else's computer, and you could do one person at a time. You could read messages, leave messages, transfer very small files, because this was like over 1200 baud, maybe 2400 baud modem if you're lucky. So he had a BBS that I frequented, and we met through another thing. This was during what they called the zine revolution, where like now everybody has a podcast. Back in the mid late 80s, early 90s, everybody published a zine, a little Xerox thing that you cut and paste to put together yourself and mail out. Well, there was a kind of a clearinghouse for that called Fact Sheet 5. A guy named Mike Gunderloy out of Rensselaer, New York, ran that. Then it was like a clearinghouse for everybody that published a zine. You could send it to him, he'd review it and write about it, and then that became the resource for finding all these other zines. I'd met Ron through that. We talked on the phone a couple of times. He was big into conspiracy theories and things like, Illuminat, that was the name of his publishing company, and also the name of the BBS. And we'd kicked around a couple ideas. One time we were going to write a book together about hoaxes, but we never got around to it. And I was living in Oak Ridge at the time, and one Friday night I got a call, and it was him. He was calling, and he said, Steve, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, I don't have any plans. What's up? He's like, how would you like to have dinner with John Keel Sunday? I'm like, man, I'm on my way. I'm going out the door right now. But I did. I drove down to just outside Atlanta there, and then met John at Ron's house. And he was very quiet. I figured he'd be like this big, boisterous, bigger than life, loud guy. But he was very quiet, very soft spoken, but very well spoken. And he knew his beans about all this stuff. And the strange thing about that, Ron and his wife took us out to a little Mexican restaurant. I cannot remember the name of it, but just a few years, short time after that. And Ron, with his Illuminat press and his conspiracy stuff, he'd published a lot of other books. He'd brought Keel's Mothman Prophecies back out in the edition that caught somebody's attention that made the Richard Gere movie Mothman Prophecies from. But he had all this other stuff. Kerry Thornley, who had written about the Kennedy assassination and stuff, he was Oswald's buddy in boot camp, so he had some inside knowledge there. But anyway, he had upset some people and had received some death threats and things. And the Gemstone Files, I don't know if you've ever heard of those or not, but it's like the mother lode of conspiracy literature. Google that if you're interested in it. It's probably about 90% fabricated, but it's still fascinating stuff. But anyway, he published all these books under Illuminat Press. I met him, had dinner with him and Keel. And then not too long after that, I believe it was a few months, maybe a year or so, Ron died under mysterious circumstances. And he and his wife had gone out to eat Mexican, and I'm sure it was that because that was his favorite restaurant and it was close to his house. He had died of some strange, intestinal infection or something like that. Supposedly, they blamed it on the beef in the burritos or enchiladas or whatever he had eaten off the hot bar in this Mexican buffet. They blamed it on that not being cooked well enough. Well, I mean, who here hadn't eaten a kind of raw hamburger or something? That's very rare that you would get something that would kill you within just a few days.
Mm-hmm. And no one else got sick?
And nobody else got sick. That was the thing. And I posed that to his wife, and she's like, well, then now you sound like Ron. Everything's a conspiracy. He just got some bad beef and it killed him. And I'm thinking, I don't think so. I think it was an assassination because he was uncovering some things that somebody somewhere didn't want uncovered.
Mm-hmm. And that's always the risk you run if you're dealing with these kind of subjects, and so people don't realize that.
Hunter Thompson wrote, the only people that truly know where the edge are those that have gone over it, and sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to go too far, and then hope that you can back up and say, I'm going to tiptoe back over across that line. Now, I've got somebody in the chat there that's asking about the Black-Eyed Kids. I did have a Black-Eyed Kids encounter back in the 90s, but that one, it takes a long time to tell. Mm-hmm. And if Josh doesn't mind me giving out another channel's address, is that okay, Josh?
That's perfect. If it's your channel, yeah, go ahead.
It's not my channel, but it was somebody that interviewed me about the Black-Eyed Kids encounter, and it's the best version of it. It's called Unicorpse Tales, like unicorn, but corpse. Unicorpse Tales, Tales. A friend of mine, Tanya, that lives in the UK, she interviewed me about my Black-Eyed Kids experience. And I think it's like a half hour, 45 minutes long, something like that. It's pretty long and drawn out. But that is absolutely the most scared I've ever been. And it was just such an irrational fear because it was two little girls in a parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning, but they had black eyes and were the shorter one, the younger one, I'm assuming, didn't speak, but the older one talked nonstop, not to me, but about me. He'll let us in. He has to let us in. He won't leave us out here. He'll take us with him. And I was driving a little 2-seater Miata at the time. There's no way I'm going to put 2 kids in a seat meant for one person and drive around at 2 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, go over there to Tanya's channel, Unicorpse Tales. The full story's over there. It's Steve Stockton's Black-Eyed Kids Encounter, or something like that. And that's one I don't think that I will ever write about, just because, and you can probably tell now, even just talking about it a little bit, I relive it. I get like a PTSD or something from it. My hands sweat. I get nervous. You can hear that fear in my voice. And I just don't think I could ever capture it on paper, even though no matter how good a writer I become, and I'm not very good at all. I think you have to be a great reader to even become a good writer. So I read like 4 hours a day. But go over there and listen to it. It's a great story. The first time I ever told that was on one of Art Bell's shows. It wasn't Coast to Coast, but one of the later ones. And Art was sick that night. And Heather Wade, his producer, was sitting behind the microphone. And she and I are friends, you know, outside of things like that. And she knew about the story. I told her about it. And that night she kind of goaded me into telling it live, and I did. And that's the first time I'd ever talked about it, just outside of a very close circle of friends, like 2 or 3 people. And Art actually called in during one of the breaks, told her what a good job she was doing, and told me, he's like, that story was fascinating. You know, just this, I can still hear Art say that. So got to talk to him on his show, but it wasn't really on there with Art. But that was a very memorable night. But a lot of times, Josh, after I talked about it, especially that first time, all these weird things would happen. That first time I told it, I don't remember what time we got done with the show. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or something. And I had just shut everything down and gone and laid down to bed. And I hear like this loud knock on the front door. Now, the place I was living at the time, little Victorian cottage in southeast Portland, right on the river down there in the Sunwood neighborhood. I had proximity detectors. I had motion cameras and lights and all this stuff. And I hear this bam, bam, bam on the front door. And then I heard what sounded like a scream came through the door, went all the way through the house and out the back door, except the doors didn't open and close. First, I thought something happened to my daughter. She lived with me at the time. She was probably in her 20s. And I ran into her bedroom and flung the door open. I'm like, are you okay? And she's just, you know, she's asleep. She kind of cracks her eyes at me like, what? And I said, you didn't hear that scream? And she said, no, I didn't hear anything. But I told you not to talk about those damn Black-Eyed Kids. And it seemed like a lot of times when I would talk about it or recount it or even parts of it, something would happen. I had stuff fall off the wall one night. I've had the knocks at the door before. It seems to lessen over time. Somebody wrote in once, and while I was telling it on a show, she had I think it was some sort of a lead glass, I don't know if it was an ashtray or a platter, some kind of dish sitting on her coffee table. She said it shattered into a million pieces. She blamed me for that.
Yeah, you were talking about Heather Wade. She was the successor on Midnight in the Desert, I believe.
Yeah,
to Art Bell, and she's a good friend of Jason Bland's. Good the Paranormal Soup, another good channel. You know, there's like a handful of podcasters that I follow with, you know, whatever, you and Jason, Josh and Pinocchio, friends of mine, and you guys do a good job. I don't really pay attention to a lot of people. Tony Merkel, obviously, Confessional, he's a good guy. He's been on my show.
Yeah.
On his. But yeah, you guys do a really, really good job. And I think Heather was, you know, I know she butted heads with a Dogman guy that everybody knows who he is. But he's not a good interview. And when he got on there, he didn't have anything to say. And then she was trying to get him to say stuff, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, well, he mentioned my name on the show, like, well, he tells stories." Like, she's like, "Okay, well, what about you?" But yeah, it was just. I remember listening to that show and going like, "Golly, he's dead in the water," But everybody they all like jumped on her and blamed her for it, because during that interview, another pretty popular YouTuber called in, and then everybody said that they had ambushed him. And I don't believe that at all. I don't think Heather did that. I think that was just him.
I think Heather kind of got a raw deal out all that. I know she caught a lot of hate and stuff, but the way I looked at that, Art picked her to be his successor, and if she's good enough for Art Bell, then by God, she's good enough for me. But a lot of people didn't see it that way.
Yeah,
and,
I thought so too.
She still broadcasts occasionally, but she'll play music. I just happened to tune in Valentine's Day, and she was on there playing rock and roll records and talking a little bit, but I don't think she does any kind of show or anything anymore.
Yeah.
Overbuild Automotive is asking in the chat, remember the title of the BEK show on Unicorp's Tales. I think it just, let me look here real quick. It just says True Encounter with the Black Eyed Kids, and then on the thumbnail it says Black Eyed Kids, True Encounter from Steve Stockton.
Yeah, and what we were saying though about her, I agree with you. I think she kind of got a raw deal too, and I believe that if Art Bell said that was her successor, then that should probably have been enough. Yeah. I like the way Art would just tell people.
Another influence, and he could, he could do good interviews, and he would ask the right questions, and just that voice coming to you out of the darkness, just Art's truly one of a kind, and no shade on George Norrie or any of those other guys, but that's some big shoes to fill, and I don't think anybody can ever do it like Art.
No, and Art he would also, one of the things I also liked about him was if somebody wasn't really being on the up and up, he would just kind of call them out, which was like, this is how it should be, like if somebody's like, on there and they're just like completely BS artists, whatever, and they're dancing around or whatever, he'd just be like, and he would just tell people exactly how it needed to be said. And that's what I think is missing from a lot of these podcasters. And another thing too, and I'm going to throw this out there, and Steve, you already know this, but people get starstruck or something. They'll interview somebody and they'll let that person, say who knows what or whatever, and then go, oh, wow, that's amazing. I mean, and your listeners are sitting there going like, really? And sometimes you just have to tell them later on, look, his views are not my views, and what he said, I'm not totally, it's like, I just had to do that with several people because, it's just the way it is. Obviously, there's some people that are going to espouse some strange things or weird things, and that. And you have to let people understand, like, look, this is his belief. This is what he's saying. He's just being interviewed by me, or we're having a discussion, and that sort of, gets lost, I wanted to switch gears here for a minute before we cut you loose.
Sure.
Me and you were talking about the Appalachians last night, and we were talking about feral humans. And when I was at the Bigfoot conference in Mineola this past weekend, I was surprised how many Bigfooters knew who I was. And I was really thrown by that, and how eager they were to talk to me and everything. And I was humbled by that. I loved that. That was really cool. But I did a story, and this one guy, he'd said, I like your show, whatever. And I kind of tested him, and I was like, oh, really? What's it called? He knew, and he didn't know who I was by looking at me, because he'd only listened to the podcast. And he goes, well, I only listened to the Bigfoot episodes and then some of the Dogman. And so I said, well, what's your favorite episode? And he said, Stalked by Sasquatch, Besieged by Bigfoot. I said, okay, well, you're not BS, and you do listen, And we were talking about the feral humans. Now, one of the things that was very interesting about that, you had some things to say about those. We're not going to get into an hour-long discussion or whatever, but I'd like for you to throw your 2 cents in there, because me and this individual had a brief conversation on Saturday about that same subject, and it was because of a story that I had told, an ancestral story about another family that lived in the 19-teens and then the 1920s, and they got messed with really bad by a family of I don't even want to call them Bigfoot. I don't know what they are. They're like a cross between Bigfoot and human. You were the first person that I've actually heard say that that's what these feral humans really are. I've heard them both ways, but you said it was like they were like a cross, and that was what I thought about these things. They put ash on their faces and their hands, and now in order to get ash, you have to have a fire, you know. So they're not like apes.
Mastered fire, yeah. They're close to our intelligence, maybe even smarter than we are, since they stay in the woods and leave people alone.
Yeah, and these things here in in Central Texas, what they had done was dug up a body of a young man that had died of the flu, the pandemic of the flu, you know, and they took it. And so they got shot at when they returned to the edge of the property. The father of that son that had, been extracted by them, he shot one of them. And so then that started a whole thing where these things were just coming to their cabin and just attacking them constantly until they were moved and helped move by another family, which happened to be one of my dad's sides of the way back. That they actually helped them. They were one of the families that helped these people move to get out of that area and moved them to the other side of San Gabriel. But these things looked very odd. Did you want to talk about that? What you were telling me last night,
sure.
Me and Barton, about the feral humans?
I've got a series of books called National Park Mysteries and Disappearances, and the very first volume was about the Great Smoky Mountains, and that's because I grew up in the area. I spent a lot of time up there. A lot of the missing people stories there, I was intimately involved with those to some degree. But the Dennis Martin case, that one has always fascinated me. I remember the day that was reported as that evening, Father's Day, 1969, and the next day I was 5 going on 6. Dennis was 6 going on 7. Lived in the same small town there, Knoxville. Not really that small, but small compared to bigger place, I guess, if that makes any sense. But that one just captivated me. That was the first time, that I got my childlike mind around it. Sometimes bad things can happen to kids. You can go missing with your dad and your grandpa and your brother right there and not be found. And followed the case for years. And somewhere, I think they're at my brother's house, I've got a couple of scrapbooks that are full of newspaper clippings. Back then, Knoxville had 2 papers. Had the Knoxville Journal, which was the morning paper, and the Knoxville News Sentinel, which was the evening paper. And I clipped out everything I could find. I'd watch the news. I kept thinking he was going to be found. And in my head, I'm like, well, we live close to the Smokies. He could have wandered down here. We're only an hour away. Well, in my little childlike mind, I didn't realize that was an hour by car. It wasn't like a walking hour. It'd take a couple of days to walk to the Smokies from where I lived. But I even got out on the country roads there where we lived, and again, on my Schwinn Stingray, looking in the bushes to see, maybe he wandered down here and got lost and can't find his way back. I left him a candy bar and a bag of potato chips, that sort of thing. But that case has just always stuck with me. And now there's a guy on YouTube. I don't know his real name, can't vouch for his veracity, but he goes by South Force 10. And he claims that there are feral people in the park. Now, I've heard those stories. I've heard of people living in the park. Dwight McCarter, who was the lead tracker on the Dennis Martin case and a park ranger there in the Smokies for years. He's retired now. Wrote a very good book about disappearances in the park there and how they rescued people and looked for people and stuff. And he said that he'd heard stories and that he had run across people that he didn't talk about them being like a Bigfoot or hairy wild men or anything. He just said that there were people that lived in the park that, liked their privacy and way back in there. But that Dennis Martin case, the Key family, where they saw something that appeared to be a large, hairy man, as they described it. At first thought it was a bear, and then they realized it was running up a holler, as they say down south, with something over its shoulder. And this was right after they'd heard a blood-curdling scream, something red over its shoulder. Dennis was wearing a red jacket. Well, this guy, South Force 10, claims that there are some sort of Bigfoot hybrid human, some kind of creatures that live in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and that they've tried to clean them out. There's been like military operations to go in and thin them out. He claims that his relatives back in the 30s, before it became a national park, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember if it was 34 or 36 when it was commissioned. But he claims that his relatives went in there and hunted these people. They paid them to do that, to kind of thin out the herd, so it were. And he claims that Dennis Martin was captured by these people, and they either kept him like as a pet or they ate him. Now that's kind of hardcore, but if you think about that, and I talk about this in the book, that's National Park Mystery Disappearances Volume 1, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. There are places you can get in the park. You know, you talked about going out before GPS and things like that. I was the same way. If I had a compass, especially an orienteering compass and a topo map, I could find my way out anywhere. If it was dark and I could get somewhere where I could see the stars, I could get myself out of the woods. You know, a lot of people, like I said, they rely on their phones or their GPS. That might not always work. So better to have those skills. But that, to me, that tied the Dennis Martin disappearance up better than anything I've ever heard as far as all the loose ends. The Knoxville FBI field agent that was in charge of that case killed himself in a very spectacular fashion in a nightclub there on Kingston Pike. And again, you know, don't know what that was all about, but there was just a lot of unusual things there. And I've had people come to me after reading that in the book and say, well, yeah, there's not any place in the park that people could hide for that long. You know, if you lived back in the park far enough and never came out for anything, you could stay in there indefinitely. I like to point to the case of Eric Rudolph, who was the abortion clinic bomber. He hid out for, what was it, like 4 or 5 years in Nantahala National Park, which is huge, but it's not as big as the Smokies. And he didn't have any outdoor skills or anything. He was just kind of winging it. And the only reason he got caught, he got, a little too comfortable and was going into a little town there in North Carolina and getting the old bread and snack cakes and stuff out of a dumpster. And a rookie cop saw him and recognized him from the poster. But they found he had several different places, and he wasn't that far in the forest either. Where he hid out, nobody ever came across him. Nobody spotted him. Nobody knew he was there. There are places in the Smokies that I doubt anybody, maybe even the Cherokee, have never been there. There's places that no human's probably been to, and it's just rugged terrain and be hard to get to, and you might be able to drop in, on a parachute, or there's places you can't even hike to that you have to climb. The Huggins Hell is one of those, and that's what they call it, a hell, because it's hard to get up. You're climbing up like a sheer cliff face, and there's a waterfall, a stream of water that comes down the middle of it. There's people that have climbed it, but they don't recommend it, and the rangers will really get on to you if they catch you doing it. It's not a sanctioned place in the park you're going to be. But all that aside, I think there's some truth in that, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're not some kind of hybrid. I mean, maybe that's how they keep from dying out. Every now and then they capture somebody. They get one of these people that disappears in a national park or national forest and turn them into some sort of breeding material, because there's mostly men that go missing, but there's women that go missing too. So who knows? At this point in my life, I'll be 59 years old on Halloween. I don't discount anything. I've seen and heard and experienced stuff myself, and who am I to judge, what somebody else says they've seen or heard? And we talked about that last night, that Barton, he's had experiences that people tried to tell, well, that didn't happen, or you didn't see that, or you didn't say, like him, I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and that makes it easier for me to believe other people, especially ones that don't have anything at all to gain, that aren't trying to sell you a book or a movie or something, that are just telling you a story. And some people, especially Strange Things in the Woods, some of those, particularly the older people, they were reticent to talk about some of that. It was all, you had to pull it out of them with a log chain until they found out that you weren't going to make fun of them or call them crazy or something. Then they'd open up a little bit more.
Yeah,
so there's all kinds of stories out there.
Oh yeah, it was Wicked Pizza Boston said that a family back in the 1800s robbed people and ate them. 400 person. Yeah, that was the Shawnee Bean clan, and it was. I think it was actually. Was it the 1700s? I think it was the 1700s, wasn't it? Or was it the 1800s?
I've heard about those. I think there was somebody here in the States that did that too. The Harps or something like that was their name. That
there was
a cave, and they were. I don't know that they ate people, but they were feral, somewhat feral. And by feral, I don't mean they've gone totally wild, but they stay back in. Now over there where my dad was from on the Cumberland Plateau in the Jamestown area, there was people that lived over there, Josh, way back in the woods. I mean, miles in the woods. And this was during the 1930s and stuff. There was a family that had immigrated over from Ireland. The parents were first generation. In fact, one of their sons, Otto, has got some stories in my book there. One of the Strange Things in the Woods, one about the haunted cabin. But I mean, these were tough people that lived way back in there. And they made moonshine and hunted ginseng and did a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but they were survivors, and that was one reason they liked that quietness, and they're just being alone like that. They didn't want to be bothered. And, I can respect that to a degree. I'm kind of a hermit by nature to some degree myself. I've been prepared for this lockdown all my life and didn't know it. I've always
you told me that when we first talked.
I've always preferred my own company to that of others. I like solitude. Now, but, I'm a chameleon, though. I can go out, I can go to a party, I can go to your conference and get up there and talk and tell stories and have fun with everybody. But, when it comes time to go home and stuff, I'm happy with that, too. I'm happy to sit right here in my house. I've never been in my neighbor's house. They're lucky if I wave at them over the fence. I just, not a people person.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I always say if somebody can't be comfortable with themselves, I do that a lot because I'm in security and I have to sit there for hours and be alone. And I've hired people and they're just like, I just can't do this. I just can't be alone for 12 hours, just not doing anything. And I'm just like, wow, you must really not be a good person. Because if you're not comfortable with your own, if you can't be alone and you have to have the energy of someone else. Well, I mean, what's your deal?
I don't have no need to be entertained, and nor do I have the desire to entertain anybody all the time. I love coming on shows like this. I love talking paranormal or whatever, but when it's over, I can turn it off and go outside and sit and look at the stars.
Yeah, like when I messaged you the other day when we finally we connected, you were outside with your dog, and that's fun. Just sit outside. And,
he's my best friend and constant companion, and he's almost too much sometimes.
And the best part about dogs is they don't talk.
Yeah.
You don't have to argue with you. If you tell them something, they typically do it if you train them correctly. I mean, but
he kind of has separation anxiety. He follows me. He'll follow me in the bathroom, but he will sit with his back to me to give me some privacy. But he's a good little dog. Rescue. He's Chihuahua Corgi mix, and he's just as odd as he sounds. But I love him to pieces. He's
What's his name?
Mulder, Mulder.
Like
Fox Mulder. Yeah, we used to have a cat named Scully, but when my daughter moved out, she took the cat with her to keep her company. So we had Mulder and Scully.
One spooky chick said Sawney Bean. That was it. I said Shawnee Bean. I was wrong. Yeah. Sawney Bean clan. That's what they were, and they were a Scottish clan in the Highlands, I believe, and they were killing people and. Supposedly they were robbing them, and I've read different reports that they were actually cannibals. I don't know, but the whole thing with the feral humans is very interesting. It's very weird, and there's a whole lot to it. But we are going to eventually, me and you we're going to record together for the podcast, and we can go a little deeper into a lot of these subjects. So, guys, when that comes out, check out the. We'll get into we'll get into it a little bit deeper. So when you come to the conference, which somebody just asked about the conference, I'm going to tell you again, guys, August 13th, and if you're a VIP, you show up on August 12th, you'll get to hang out with me and Steve Stockton and Ken Gerhard. And let me read the names off again so everybody can, and just because everybody needs to know who it is that's coming, because I have this list right here. I don't even know if I've read the list to you, Steve, but it's going to be...
I've about got it memorized. Barton Nunley, Lyle Blackburn, maybe. Nick Redfern.
Yeah, it's me, Ken Gerhardt, Ron Murphy, Nick Redford, Bettina Moss, you, obviously Steve Stockton, Barton Nunley, Nick Valente, Jody Cook, Tony Merkel, Jay Vault, that's Tucker, Jay Tucker, Kenny Irish, Elijah Henderson, David Wedley, and Kumbo Baker. And Josh Nanokio said he's going to try and make it. He told me that yesterday, and he's supposed to come on the show this coming Tuesday. But we'll see what happens. And then Lyle is going to try and make it.
Even if I am a part of it, I'm honored to be on there with those guys. I mean, those are people that I look up to. Nick Redfern. I wish I could be as prolific as that guy. Man,
I think everybody wishes they could do it. But you know, and he was so much fun to talk to and hang out with at dinner. I mean, Nick, I always have good conversations with Nick, but my wife got to meet him. She never really talked to him, so she got to meet him, and they hit it off, and it was fun. We had a lot of fun. We had a good time. This is the first annual. It's called Paranormal Round Table Presents, the first annual Dogman Cryptid Conference, and it's in Paris, Tennessee, August 12th, August 13th. Regular tickets are $30. The VIP tickets are $75. Now, if you're a Patreon member of my show and you're at least at the $20 tier, you get a $10 discount on the regular admission and a $15 discount on the VIP tickets. Now, you guys, somebody had told me, "Oh, you got too many people speaking, blah blah blah." Well, if you got to go to sleepy time at 5 PM, well, that's great. Sorry that you can't stay up because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, this may be one and done. You know?
I'm ready to pull an all-nighter and listen to some of these guys. Even we have to go outside and just sit around in the parking lot and talk to each other because, you know, until the next one, this is going to be the only time that we're all together there in one place and can share stuff and swap stories and things. I can't wait. And
so if you don't want to go, it would be like, dude, you get the opportunity to sit there and talk. And if you're a VIP, you can sit there and talk to all of us. Okay. And like just the people that we had, and then also I forgot to mention Daniel Jones is going to be there too. Daniel Jones and me are going to be doing a set together. He did a lot of work on the Aurora, Texas UFO crash. Now that's a pretty cool story, and I've always been fascinated by that. And so he's going to come on the show too, and he's going to be there, and he's going to be helping us with the PowerPoints and all that stuff. So you're going to have a lot of people. There's also people that are going to be vendors that are going to come that are not even really. I mean. I left off of that list. Oh my gosh, I feel terrible. D.A. Roberts. I forgot about D.A., man. God, how could I do that? So I got to message the guy that's
keep up with.
Yeah, it is. So D.A. Roberts also.
But I'm going to have a vendor table there too, and Sandy Lewis, my co-author on the book we're doing about the missing, murdered indigenous women called Spirited Away. She's going to be there with me, and Bill Melder, the other half, the actual founder of Missing Persons and Mysteries, he's going to stop by. He lives just about 45 minutes away in New Bern, Tennessee. I think that's the name of the place. He said he was close to it, so he's going to stop by at the vendor table there, and. A lot of people have never seen Bill, so that'd be interesting there to see me and Bill and Sandy all together. Sandy also writes a lot of the scripts over there for Missing Persons and Mysteries. She's one of the head writers.
Mm-hmm. And so when you guys like you started your show, like you said you're at 188,000. That completely dwarfs my show, like completely. But you have been at this for a while, but like not with the YouTube though. Like how long have you been doing that?
With Missing Persons and Mysteries, I don't even think it's been 2 years yet. It might be right at 2 years.
That's crazy. It's
time. I've got another channel called 13 Past Midnight. A lot of people know me from that. Last year and into part of this year, I went live every single night for 370 something nights in a row, and just decided it was time for a break. And I was doing that, and I had recorded a 3-part series of videos about the disappearances in the Smokies. And Bill had listened to one of them, I think is the Dennis Martin one, and had messaged in the comments like, "Wow, I love your voice. Would you like to narrate about missing people for my channel?" And, you know, I'd get a lot of that in the comments, and you go and you look, and it's usually somebody with, 50, 60 subscribers or something like that. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I think I only had a couple of thousand on 13 Past Midnight. And I went and looked, and Bill had 10,000. Like, wow, 10,000, that seemed like a lot. And so I went over there, joined up with him, and he made me half owner of the channel. And then just, especially within the last year or so, it just absolutely blew up. It took about a year to get to 100,000, and then here it is just a few months after we hit 100,000, maybe 3 months or so, and we're another couple of months we'll hit 200,000. So it's growing exponentially, and I said I'm not worthy. I love every single subscriber. Get some great comments over there. Don't know what it is. People tell me they love my voice. It helps them relax. People with PTSD, chronic pain, people that are insomniacs like me that can't sleep. I think I sound like an educated hillbilly. And that's exactly what I am. I own up to it. But I've never liked the sound of my own voice, but most people don't like the sound of their own voices. But if people like my voice and love to listen to me tell stories, then right on. Then it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I can't tell people enough, like, do this while you can, because we're not 100% sure, like how it's going to be from year to year. You know what I mean? We talked a little bit last night about it.
Gotta make hay while the sun shines. Now, YouTube could go away. It could be like the thing that's not anymore that I'm trying to think of that Facebook destroyed. MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That could be YouTube. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to do YouTube and books as a full-time job. I mean, I've worked hard. I put in my years. Said I usually work 2 full-time jobs just because I never sleep. And it's just such a relief to be able to sit and do something that I enjoy. And I work at this. I mean, don't let anybody kid you, and Josh will attest to this. It's work to put on a show, or these guys that write books. There's work that goes in there. I mean, you're racking your brain, you're researching, what am I going to do next? How am I going to do this? But and my dad told me this when I was a kid. He said, find something that you love and a way to get paid to do it, and you'll never work a day in your life. Mm-hmm. And that's true. This doesn't seem like work to me, but I may put in 8, 10, 12 hours a day recording stuff or going over scripts or doing research, but again, I love it. As Patton said about war, God help me, but I do love it so.
Oh yeah, and was it Stonewall Jackson that said that if it's a good thing that, or was it Robert? It was either him or Robert E. Lee that said that it's a good thing that war is so, or we would become too fond of it. That war is so violent because we become too fond of it. Yeah, I remember because it is, and I know Rommel had said, he was another general, and he had said something about how war was beautiful, but it was not good. Like he was very, but it seems. If it's something that you're really into, and I've known people that are, So, anyways, I was good having you on, Steve. I'm going to let you run.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me here. Thanks to all my people that came over and listened in, and thanks to all the new people here. And if she's in the chat, Sheila Noel, my friend from YouTube, she was absolutely going bonkers when she found out I was going to be on here tonight. She's probably here under a different name, but I want to say a special shout out to her for just making me feel so loved and so wanted. I love it when people make a fuss over me because I'm just me. What you see is what you get, and there's no put on, no pretense. I'm not a researcher. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a storyteller. I'm a raconteur. I'm doing what I love. And you guys do it too. Just find something you love to do and do it.
That's right.
Life's too short and likewise too long to be miserable.
Yeah, and from the first time we spoke, Steve, we got along great and kind of had the same likes and dislikes, and even with people. Yeah. So that was another thing we had in common. So I was like,
that's
okay.
What I like about you. You're just I don't know if I can say this on here, but I'm going to say you're a no bullshit kind of guy. And you call bullshit when you see some kind of shenanigans going on. And I appreciate that. I like that honesty. If you're going to say something to somebody, you'll say it to their face and dare them to do anything about it. I like that. You get that a lot in this community where people will be nice to you, and then you hear that they've talked about you behind your back or something. I appreciate somebody that'll be a man and come up and look you in the eye and say, that's BS. You don't do that. I I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So
Yeah.
Sheila Loya, she is in the chat there.
Oh yeah,
Now, thank you
she's always here.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
she was the one on Facebook that was totally fangirling, and I literally blushed. But thank you for being here. Thanks to everybody, and I hope you'll come and see me in Paris, Tennessee, kind of my old stomping ground. But let's make this one a sellout so that Josh won't have any choice but to do it every year.
Yeah, and if if this one works out and it sells out, the next year we're going to do it in Wisconsin, because that's Linda, my friend Linda's home stomping ground. Now,
oh, that'd be great to do something different every year.
Oh yeah, and we talked about this last night with Barton, and Barton told you, that Linda said she couldn't promise, but she wants to try to make it. And between now and August, a lot of things could happen. She could start feeling better. She told Barton the other day that she was starting to feel better. So it's not off the table that she might show up. And I told her, look, if you were just in the audience, that'd be spectacular, because that Dogman is her thing. She was the first person that I really started paying attention to, and the first person I reached out to and corresponded with me. And so I always remember that. And so Steve, I appreciate you coming on. You have a good night, and we're going to record together.
Anytime you want me to be here, just let me know, and I'll be here. Can't wait till August. I'm already making plans.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to have you. So just have you at that conference, man. That's going to be great.
All right. Thanks again. Be sure to check out my books. They're on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. Strange Things in the Woods, My Strange World, which a lot of these stories I talked tonight are in that book. And then the National Park Mysteries and Disappearances series, Volume 1, The Great Smokies, Volume 2, California, which includes Joshua Tree and Yosemite, Volume 3, The Pacific Northwest, which is Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State. And then also co-wrote a book with Cisco Murdoch, We're All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, A Guided Tour Through a Haunted Life. Mainly her stories, but it's a good book nonetheless. And check me out, Missing Persons and Mysteries, trying to do just about a video a day now while we can. But if you enjoy missing persons and then the mystery side of that, we cover a little bit of woo. We occasionally get some ghost stories and some Bigfoot. So we have a segment that's really popular called Listener Stories, where people can write in and tell about any kind of strange, unusual, paranormal experience they've had. But the main focus will always be on missing person. If we can bring one person home or give one family closure, then we've done what we set out to do.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me, Josh, and thanks for all your people here from showing up to listen. I appreciate each and every one of you. As I like to say, be good to yourselves and each other. As for me, I'll see you a little farther on down the trail.
Okay. All right, Steve. You have a good night.
Thanks. You too, brother.
Bye-bye. So that's Steve Stockton. It's been a long time coming, and we had been going back and forth, and finally we got it together, and then we started talking. And then that first night we talked, then Barton told Steve the same thing. The first night that we talked, we talked for hours. And me and Steve talked for hours. And then when I was on the phone with Josh and Pinocchio of What Lurks Beneath, we talked for I think he had to get up early to catch a plane. And he was in Dallas at the time in a layover or whatever. And he ended up getting a room and had to catch a plane 4 or 5 in the morning. We talked for about 3 hours. And so there's a lot of people that I've just made friends with that I can't tell you, that I've just really cherished their friendship, and I enjoy talking to them. And Steve is a real treasure. Great guy, and so, yeah, we had a long talk last night, me and Barton were on the phone together, and Steve had messaged me and said, hey, did you want to talk about the show tomorrow? And so I said, yeah. So I called him up, and I immediately said, hey, I'm on the phone with Barton, and this is Steve, and we introduced each other, and they had never met, and they just took to each other, talking about all kinds of cool stuff. Those two, listening to them talk was educational for me. I learned a lot just by talking to some of these people. When you start thinking that you know everything, that's when it gets, you're so far out of your depth, when you start to think that you already got it all figured out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that make that mistake. just thinking they've got it all figured out, and you don't. I mean, you know, and unfortunately there's a lot of people in this field too that feel like there's something special about them, that they're better, that, you know, Steve's not one of them, neither is Barton. But they're just like, oh, I'm somebody, I'm a big deal, you know, and, you know, you got to bow down and talk, you know, whatever, dude, get out of here. But that happens. Carol says, my shoes are always good. Well, I'm tonight I'm wearing some Fila's. They're very comfortable. I appreciate that. I don't know how you know that my shoes are good, but thank you. Liberty says you just got two of Steve's books during the live stream. Thank you for everybody that donated. The money just goes right back into the show because that's what we got to do, you know. And it is unfortunate that there are people in this community that are just not good people. You know, I'm glad that I'm able to deal with and talk to good people and deal with, you know, down to earth people that are just very, you know, helpful and friendly, and like Ken, you know, going out of his way to help me with this conference. And I will say this again, it is Paranormal Round Table's conference. Ken had made a post. He was explaining the speaker situation, and I wanted to go over that real quick so everybody could understand. Make sure that everybody's on the same page here. It says here, Ken Gerhardt, on April 27th, he said, a note about the speaker situation at the upcoming Dogman conference. While Josh and I are overjoyed about the enthusiasm that has been expressed about our event, unfortunately, there are hard decisions that have to be made. A 2-day event is just not feasible, I'm afraid, and in a 1-day event, there are only so many speaker slots available. While I'm admittedly not super familiar with the Dogman community myself, I have no doubts there are dozens of excellent researchers who have something to offer. Yet ultimately putting on an event like this costs a lot of money, which it does. And therefore speakers with name recognition, which incidentally usually comes with a solid reputation and a storied body of work, are apt to sell more tickets. This is no slight to anyone. For example, we have decided to include a multi-research panel that will be comprised of up-and-coming investigators who are not doing a full presentation. Also, we are hoping to build this into an annual event where new speakers can be given their opportunities next year, etc. Finally, and I sincerely hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but anyone who is put off by our decision-making could theoretically put on their own Dogman conference and have anyone they want as a speaker. Still in all, we hope we can have the full support of the cryptid community moving forward with this epic gathering. Okay. Now, I want to say this on the air because I don't want any of my friends in the Bigfoot community, the UFO community, the paranormal community, the Dogman community, all the communities that I'm a part of, which is a lot. You know, I study all these mysteries. Let me say something. I'm not trying to put anyone off. I'm not trying to leave anybody out or forget about anybody. Or, you know, one person said, you forget where you came from. Like, where did I come from? Started from the bottom, now I'm here. You know, what are you talking about? Isn't that like a Drake? So, like, what are you talking about? Are you saying that I'm supposed to remember that I started at the bottom and now I'm, you know? It's just it gets kind of ridiculous, man. And you know, you can only have like so many, you know, people. And you know, I tried to stock this event top to bottom with quality people with names, people who've written books, people who have huge, you know, channels and do a lot of good work, so that everybody can be satisfied and be happy. And it's something that you want to pay $30 for. You know, I mean, I have to pay for the hotel rooms for all these people. I have to pay for their travel expenses. And then hopefully if there's money left over, then I got to pay them for their time and for speaking. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to just go, oh, this is my money. No, dude, it's all going to be going to the speakers so that maybe, just maybe, we can do this again next year in a bigger place. If this one goes well, we'll do it again next year, and we'll put it in a different place. But there's no guarantees. This one has to do well. If this one does well, then we do it again next year, more than likely. If it doesn't, then there's some thinking we have to do about should we even do it again. So, that's why people are like, well, I'll just try to catch you next year when you're going to Wisconsin or Michigan or wherever you go. I don't know that we're going to do that. We're hoping that this is what works. Nick Valente and Ken and Barton were all like, hey, this is going to be an annual event. Maybe, but maybe not. It just depends on how much money I lose on this, and if I don't lose any money and I can at least break even, then it was worth the time. But yeah, I would eventually, somebody said the Alamo Dome. No, James, I'm not going to be doing it at the Alamo Dome, but I would eventually like to have a bigger venue where we can sell more tickets. Now, we do have 400 at least. So, and I am going to hang around until the evening. If people are still around and want to hang around and watch other people talk and tell their stories in person and talk and do whatever, then we're going to do that. Ken seems to think 5 o'clock everybody's going to fall off and fall down on the ground on their feet. It's been 8 hours, whatever. Well, time to pack it in. I don't personally believe that, but I would like everybody to show up, show their support for the community, for the Dogman / Cryptid community, and show them what we do and how we do it, and that we are down to party into the night. You know what I mean? And unlike some people, I know that this show is about entertainment first and foremost. You're here to be entertained, to hear all these things. Of course, you want to learn about this stuff and you want to do all this stuff, but it's entertaining. It has to be, or you wouldn't be here. You would be wasting your time. You'd just be sitting here getting lectured, and so it's just like, there's people who honestly have the audacity, the gall to actually say, that they are helping people, I'm helping these people get over their PTSD from seeing Dogman and blah, blah, blah. That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, dude, because you're not. There's only so much we can do when you hear them repeat their stories to you. You can only console them so much. I mean, there's really nothing I can do over the phone. I mean, I can be sympathetic, and it's sad that some of these people have to go through this. But you can learn a lot, if you go and you're able to talk to these people in face to face about these cryptids and about their opinions and the nature of these things. And there's a lot of people that are going to have a lot of different opinions and stuff. And I think it's cool. So I'm hoping that that's what we do, and we all can come together and have a great time, Somebody says, with a turkey leg barbecue card, turkey leg coupons that don't expire like first. Yeah, I would like to get my friend who makes those turkey legs to come down there too, but I don't know if he's going to be able to make it all the way to Tennessee. And hopefully my friend Trey will be able to, not my cousin Trey that was on the show, but my friend Trey Felton. I'm hoping that he comes on. I mean, that he will take the job to go and cater and smoke some briskets. Because I'd like you guys to try Texas brisket. That's something I'm still working on. That's going to cost a grip. But like I said, I do what I can for my fans. The tickets go on sale at Eventbrite, 4 p.m. Saturday. Okay? By 4 p.m. Saturday, they'll be up. And it'll be, like I said, $30 for a general admission, $75 for the VIP. And you got to get in there and get them. Because once they go on sale, they're probably going to go quick. From what I've seen, yeah, when I was reported by the NADP, there's so many people trying to get them already. And I'm getting messaged every day about them. So you're getting probably the most epic lineup that's ever been seen in this cryptid field. So that being said, the conference is the 13th, but on the 12th, is when you get to hang out with all of us if you're a VIP. I would say the VIP tickets, you got to get them quick. Okay? So. Yeah, Main Mermaid says here, it says, it does help PTSD to talk about your experiences. Yeah, I understand that. But, for you to get up there, for somebody to tell you, let me put you in front of a bunch of, people that are going to listen to this. And if you talk about it, then this is therapy. Okay, maybe it is therapy for you. Maybe it does help you. But that person's not doing it for that reason. I can tell you that right now. Okay, and that's bullcrap. I mean, and there's not just one person doing that. Unfortunately, people say all kinds of things, and and go into the guise of trying to help people. Really they're just helping themselves. Spooky says, what kind of vendors? There'll be people selling their books, other authors, and people that are gonna probably bring their merchandise. And of course, all of the people, the aforementioned people, they're all going to be there. My eyes are burning so bad, and they're all going to be selling their books and their merchandise and everything else. So you will have a plethora of people who will be selling things to choose from. And I know Ken's got 2 or 3 different people that sell different types of merchandise, different types of things, Oh, I took my glasses off. My eyes are burning so bad. I'm just going to have to look and see if I can read the chat here. I'm not saying that it doesn't help to talk about it. I'm just saying that this person pretending that he's doing therapy for these people. Let's face it, this is first and foremost. You has a show that is entertaining people, because otherwise you wouldn't have a show at all. So he's not doing it for therapy. To help you with your therapy. That's not. I don't believe that for a second. Oh, my eyes, folks. I'm so sorry. I had to sit there and close my eyes and water them down. All right, guys. Yes, allergies. Obviously, just it's been some congestion and Holly M asks a very pertinent question. She says, what time will the conference start on Saturday the 13th? I apologize if you already answered this question. Yeah, I don't think I've actually answered that question. It will start at 9 a.m., 9:30, when the doors will open about 8:30. And then 9:30, the first speaker will come on, and it'll just go from there. I mean, probably 9, I'd say, maybe. Yeah, I know I need some Visine. But I would say that would be when the first person comes on, and then it'll just go like every 40 minutes, I guess, and then there'll be a panel, and then there's anybody that wants to speak from that after that from the panel. I think Elijah Henderson might have some stuff to say. So, yeah. And hopefully everybody enjoyed the show tonight. My point is too that if somebody's trying to actually help you, then they'll talk to you, and they don't have to have a show that they go and put you on, and then try to steer you toward whatever the heck it is that, because they have a narrative. That's the thing. And people, one person was attacking me. They're always attacking me. The skills, whatever this person is, are constantly attacking me. They've been all over Roger from the OBL lately, just going after him, trying to get him to say that I told him to come on my show and say something bad about Voldemort. That's not the case. And so far, Roger stuck by his guns and said, no, that's not what happened. And this person continues to go around saying that Roger admitted that I told him that. That's not what happened. Not at all. I had encouraged him and the Hendersons to come forward and talk about what they knew about Voldemort and what he had done. You're talking about a person who's had altercations with everybody. Even like Tony Merkel was talking about being apprehensive about going because he doesn't trust that person because he could be anybody. You haven't seen his face, folks. We don't know what he looks like. So somebody had the nerve just to pipe up the other day and be like, oh, why do you talk about this guy and whatever? And why is it important? The reason it's important is because that person is not good for this community. He's not good for this, this whole community. I mean, it's like everybody that has dealt with this guy in any real capacity other than people, if it's somebody who's dealt with him for a little while, that's one thing, but usually everybody that deals with him in any length, any time of capacity, whatever, has had a problem with him. Half the people on that list have had problems with him, and then a bunch of other people who aren't on that list. Okay, so I can tell you right now, my friend Linda's one of them. DW is one of them. Vault. I mean, Butch Witkowski, God rest his soul, he's passed on. Lon Strickler. There's been a lot of people that I'm very good friends with in this community and that he has had problems with. And everybody always seems to think, like they look at each individual case and decide that he's innocent. I can't understand why you would do that. I really don't. Like, I really don't understand that. Like, how can you, I mean, like every single buddy that is done, whatever. And even though me and Roger kind of butted heads for a little bit there, I mean, we're fine. We don't have a problem. We're good. We communicated earlier. If he goes his way, I go mine. Whatever. But I do believe what he says about VC. When he said that he thinks that it was him that was messing with him. I do believe it's possible. I'm not saying it is what happened, but I do believe it's possible because this has happened multiple times. This guy has a history of this. And he was pushing a narrative for a long time, even though privately he was espousing a different narrative to me of what he saw happening. And I thought, that is the most dishonest thing when you absolutely see, things this way, and you believe that that's probably even what's happening, and you're still pushing a narrative that's over here. Is that not deceitful? I mean, that's my thing. I don't know. And once again, you get tickets Saturday. They'll go on sale. And, yeah. And so August 12th, you get to hang out with us. August 13th, that's when the event takes place. And, yeah, it's really weird because I actually was dealing with two Rogers today. Roger from the LBL and then Roger Carter. And we were having a conversation with both of them. I almost got them mixed up for a minute there because I was having it at the same time on through messages or whatever. I did put the invite out for Roger from the LBL to go, and he says he's busy. He's going to be in Idaho. Figured why not let him come. If he wants to come, he can speak his piece. He can tell what he wants, whatever, and people can draw their own conclusions because it was in the LBL. What the alleged story that happened was in the LBL. There were murders that took place there. Now there is some confusion because there's another person claiming that they were victims of an attack, but I do believe it's two different things. I think it's two different stories. And there is a police officer that had come forward with Elijah Henderson talking about how he remembers there being a survivor that was a young boy of the attacks. Now, some people believe it was Roger, some people believe it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions. Yeah, James, I agree with what you're saying there. You know, Dana, some people think that that's him. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed tonight with Steve Stockton. Next week, I'm supposed to have Josh from What Lurks Beneath. If you haven't, his show all the way to Mineola is 4.5, 5-hour drive, up there and back to the Bigfoot conference this past weekend, which I had a great time hanging out with Nick Lyle and Ken and everybody. But I listened to Josh's show on the way up there to stay awake and on the way home to stay awake. And he's pretty powerful. He's got a very, very good show. He does a great job. And I can only hope that one day I can be as big as him and Stockton. This conference will be, the Carriage Church, this conference will be a success because of the positivity behind it. PRT is built of truth and positivity. Thank you for that. And I have caught a lot of hell for people for telling it like it is, and unfortunately, a lot of people know Ryan. I was talking to him earlier, and he's been being attacked by his former co-host, who's another malcontent in this community, who's constantly saber rattling, causing problems, just doing. I don't know. He's just constantly messing with Ryan, and it's just unfortunate because it just seems like it never ends. It's just a constant, nonstop disco of crap that comes from him and his people. They have a narrative that they're trying to push that there's only one thing this could be, and it's an evolutionarily adapted canid animal. Okay? But somehow this thing evolved to stand up on its hind legs and run around out in the woods. You are out of your mind, okay? And you can attack me, you can attack Ryan, you can attack everybody you want. You can say whatever the heck you want to say about all of us, okay? You will never, ever, ever prove that, ever, because that is not what we're dealing with. You can believe what you want, okay? But that is not what we're dealing with. And now you can go to the conference, and there'll be many, many people there that will believe that way, and many, many people that won't believe that way. Now, you got to remember, I started on that other spectrum, on that other side. And I ended up coming to this side because I thought that there's no way that's correct. And now I'm completely in the other camp. And Nirot says they can't stand jokes or criticism. No, not at all. They're on the little playground, dude. Yeah, Dogman. I have a person that I'm going to interview today about Dogman, and we're going to talk about Dogman. And I'm going to take my mom's recorder, and I'm going to go out into the woods, and I'm going to look around and take video of leaves and sticks. Look at this, folks. There's a stick over there. It's moved. It moved from yesterday. Yesterday it was 2 centimeters to the left. Today it's to the right. Yeah. That's definitely Dogman activity, and all my little, pyraholics guys gotta look at this Dogman. Just look at this track. Look at this beaver track. It's a Dogman. I mean, it's not a beaver or a badger. It's a Dogman. Let me call up my friend. Let me call him up and see what he thinks of this. Let me send the photos of it to this guy, the Dogman Whisperer. We're gonna call him up here. Ba-da-da-da-ding, ba-da-da-da-ding. Hello? Ricardo speaking. What did you want? Yeah. I just wanted to tell you, first of all, I still worship you and believe everything you say, and also that you have all the evidence and all the proof. Okay, that being said and being out of the way, I just wanted you to come on my show and talk to my listeners and tell them, no. I don't do that. I don't go on no shows. Like I told you, Josh Turner. No. You cannot pay me to come on your show with my evidence. I have all the evidence, all of it. Big piles of it everywhere. The boxes are full of evidence, my friend. But you never get it. You know why? Because you're not worthy, my friend. You're not worthy to give my evidence. Never ever would I ever take it for you to learn about the Dogman. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Let's the Dogman. I have some Dogman feces that I collected. It was a mess. I got it under my fingernails, and I think I tasted some too. It was horrible. I actually didn't taste that bad, but it's just horrible that these people they just don't get it. That this is an evolutionary animal that evolved to stand upright for no damn good reason or practical reason at all, and stand upright and run around. Why do these people like this Josh Turner insist that there could be more than one explanation? That it's an evolutionary adaptation, that these canids just adapted to look like men and run around. I can't even say it with a straight face. So stupid. Oh, goodness. I can't even, let's call our friend down in Australia. Hey, Alice Smith here. Let me tell you something. I was riding a kangaroo earlier. I was totally riding it. Ain't no Dogman around here. Ain't not evolved down in Australia. We don't even have dogs here. In fact, we don't even have people. I don't even exist now. Nobody. There's nothing here. In fact, Australia is no longer the land down under. It's the land before time that never existed. Back in my day, we went out looking for Dogman. You just died and that was it. But what happens if you died? Okay. But what? You died. You're dead. That's it. Everything. Gone. Okay. Sorry. That's how ridiculous these people are. Dogman and undiscovered whatever. Are you kidding me? It's an undiscovered animal, a species, dude? Really? Unbelievable. Got all this evidence. And yet, of all my colleagues that you've spoken with, okay, you could not come up with anything. And as somebody said, you need to stop making fun of them and making fun, blah, 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 blah. Why? They're not stopping messing with me or my friends or my family or anything. They just keep on. So keep it coming, because I have an entire fan page made by my friend Phil Stern, who's a fan of the show, and all they do is make memes and kind of poke fun at me. I mean, you can't laugh at yourself. What does it matter? Just, roll with the punches. If you make fun of yourself, then that saves them the trouble having to do it. I just let them make memes. I just laugh. And they said, oh, yeah, we're over here in this group making memes about you. I was like, I have a group that does that all the time. Who cares? You're not doing any real research. Narod says, a raccoon or other evolving, would make more sense. But, hey, who knows? Maybe all the links are missing and all the modern skeletons as well. Yeah, they're all missing. Imagine that. This thing is an actual evolutionary creature. Right? But yet, there's no specimens. There's nothing. How is that possible? I mean, it's just crazy, dude. I had somebody at the show this past weekend. It was like, yeah, I believe in Bigfoot, but I don't believe in Dogman. I'm Dogman. I don't believe in that. And I was like, well, I don't believe in you. I don't believe in us. I don't believe we're even here. We're all just in a matrix, dude. This is all just somebody's fever dream. That's what some natives believe. And I was like, well, what about, Native Americans saying that they believe that these things are interdimensional, or that they're spirit animals, or that they have a metaphysical quality? They're wrong. Okay. Because the one that you saw was flesh and blood. You think it was, because I thought I saw a flesh and blood Dogman for 30 years, almost. Was it? I don't know. It could be, but it could be not too. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. Curtis says, yeah, but you give input on the memes we make, sir. Not all of them. I've seen some the ones that Phil Stern, he's like, Mom, I'm Josh Turner. I'm smiling. I smile on every show. You guys got to cut it out, man. Stop it. Stop making fun of me. You're offending my sensibilities. He makes videos poking fun of how I don't smile. I smile all the time. I'm always laughing and smiling. I guess he ignores that. Okay. But I do. On occasion, I smile. Yeah, now somebody said written about in India way back. Now, if you're talking about the cynocephali, that's something that could be. But even that, I believe, is not an evolutionary animal. The cynocephali were dog-headed men. Men. Okay? Not dogs that just evolved to stand up, whatever. That's not what they were. And I don't care what anybody says. I do subscribe to that they were a type of Nephilim, that they were metaphysical. Changed my mind. Changed my mind. Because I changed my mind already before. Somebody wants to change it, then talk to me. You changed my mind. Go ahead. Tell me what you got to say. I mean, somebody told me the other day too, some of the stupidest things you get in these groups. Somebody said that they had a fight with their significant other. That I don't know if it was a male or female, that they just said there's a significant other, so I don't know who this person was talking about. And they said, it was because of you, Josh Turner. You did this. And I was like, why? And they said, well, because you made my partner angry, because you keep insisting that these things cannot possibly be an evolutionary creature, that you don't think we're going to find the whatever. And I'll have you know that absolutely made me get into a fight with them. Like, I was defending you, even though I didn't totally believe what you were saying. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't believe what I'm saying totally 100%, then don't get into an argument with somebody, especially the person you're living with. I'm assuming that significant other, means that you were living with this person. Why would you get into an argument with that person and then turn around and blame me? Doesn't make any sense. And then you're gonna blame me because you got into a fight with that person because that, I made them mad because of my beliefs or whatever. They don't have to listen. They don't have to look at me if they don't want to. They can change the channel. Like, it's like a soap opera, dude. Like, that's pretty sad. I mean, I would imagine that it would be something like this, like sands in the hourglass. These are the days of our lives. Nancy, I can't be with you, Nancy. Why, John? Why? You know why, Nancy. You believe the Dogman is an evolutionary adaptation. I can't fathom that. But John, look at the evidence. That's just it, Nancy. There is no evidence. There's a total sea of no evidence. A lack thereof. Oh, why? I can't be with you. I'm sorry. I'm out the door. No. Wait, stop. Come back. I can change my views. Okay, they're phantoms. Black dogs and such and whatever. I believe whatever you say. Don't leave me. Yes, Josh Turner. This is in black and white. This is the old days, right? Operator, get me Josh Turner. Back then, I would have been like this. Because I didn't have broken fingers and I could type. Ding! Bring. Yeah, Josh Turner here. It's your dime. What you got to say? Josh Turner, I'll have you know that me and my significant other, Nancy, we're no longer talking. It's all because of you. You. Oh, you. I hope you're happy. Goodbye. And I'm over here. Of course, I'm a chain smoker too, because that's the stereotype. Oh man, this guy's crazy. You still there? No? Okay. Goodbye. Back to my journalism. Had the hat with the card, and then the Ding. Is that what happened in your mind? Is that how your mind works, doofus? Like these people, dude, they'll blame you for anything, anything. It's your fault. You did this. My significant other's not talking to me. Blue Cruise, thank you for that. Thank you for that donation. You see them homeless sitting in a park bench drinking, night train. I had it all. Good job, wife, kids. Dude, just turn it. Dang it. And break the bottle all dramatic. If only I had not subscribed to his views on the Dogman, I would still have my family. Tomorrow is another day, and I will have my revenge. I'll send him a really nasty Facebook message and tell him how he ruined my life. And me, I am completely distraught about this. I am just heartbroken that you and your significant other fought because y'all believe differently. I mean, you act like, I don't know. It's the Hatfields and the McCoys or something, It's like having a feud with your significant other. Whatever. Anyways, folks, that's all I have time for tonight. I'm sorry for going off on this tangent, but there is some people. Josh Turner's named in the divorce papers, both sides. They've sued him for messing it all up. Okay, here we go for another one. Here, you want another one? You go under the lawyer. All right? You go to meet the lawyer. Hi. James Goldman here. I'm your attorney. Sit down. Have a seat. What's the problem here? I'm looking at these papers. Your significant other is leaving you because of one Josh Turner, a.k.a. Wolf. It says here he's into boxing. Sounds like a violent person. And he's into MMA, more violence. He's a bad guy. And he has a podcast about weird stuff, paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts. Oh, boy, this guy's into some weird stuff. He's probably satanic. Wow. You have quite the case so far. And he runs a company of thugs. Well, you have a very interesting case there, Mr. Karen. Okay, Mr. Karen, you have a very interesting case there. I think we can really sue the pants off of this guy. All right. I'm excited. Let's get started. Yeah. Can I ask a question? And not to be, what is a dog man exactly? Oh, well, let me tell you. That's an upright wolf. Looks like a werewolf. It runs around and does all kinds of bad stuff. Or good stuff. I'm not really sure, but it does things. Well, I'm not sure how the judge is going to look at this dog man. Is there a way we can leave that out? Oh, no, sir. No. That's the main part that I'm absolutely distraught about. I am angry, and I want this guy to pay. He ruined my common law marriage or whatever it was we had going on. And he needs to pay me money. I pulled some figures out of the air. I think it's about $3 million. Mr. Karen. The whole case would have to hinge on this dog man type thing. What does this thing look like? Like a circus freak or some kind of escaped something from the laboratory? What is it? What is a dog man? You don't know what a dog man is? Well, that's the whole problem. I once believed that it was an evolutionary adaptation, that a man could literally come from that, and vice versa, or some other weird stuff. And my significant other didn't believe that. In fact, they poo-pooed the idea. Then they began to switch course, and they did believe in it. But by that point, this Mr. Josh Turner had convinced me that it probably wasn't that. So as you can see, my dilemma, now we're headed for divorce. And I want to sue him. And I need to sue him. He's a bad guy. Okay. Yeah, let me get back to you on that, on St. Smithens Day. Do you know what day that is? Why, no, I don't. Me neither. But when it comes up, that's when we'll take the case. Have a nice day. Goodbye. But I thought, bye-bye. And that's probably how that's going to go. But good luck. Anyways, folks, as Nina Sinclair, as the dogman turns, as the moon turns, these are the dogmen of our lives. Yeah, somebody said, comedy keeps us healthy. Folks, this is entertainment, dude, and people don't, Coralea Angelica says that Spinners is a strip club. No, it's not. Spinners was called that when my friend bought it, and it's just a bar. It's a bar and grill. That's all it is. You sure that's for food? What you're waiting there? None of my business. I haven't been to a strip club in probably 15 years, and that was for a birthday party. Okay? I don't know what kind of sickness you see in me. I'm not that if you go to a strip club that you're sick, whatever, but I don't go hanging out in those places. I'm married. Okay? And I love my wife, and I'm not going to disrespect her by going to a strip club. I have respect for my wife. In fact, I make her go with me when I go to those places. Okay? She don't have to sit at home. I take her with me. Okay? I just contradicted myself. I don't go to those places, honestly. I've never been a big strip club kind of guy. I'm not that to them. I'm not into that stuff. Jamesy Barr says he's not figured it out to just say, yeah, babe, you're right. It's like irreconcilable differences because of Josh Wolf Turner. Exactly. The stuff that I get is nonsense, man. Like I'm also, somebody told me they were like, it says Coralia. Okay, so you want me to pronounce your name? Coralia. My name is pronounced Josh. Oh, what? Turner. Anyways, I just thought what you said, Coralia, was kind of, whatever. But did not hurt my feelings. If you believe that I'm that kind of person, I'm a trashy person that goes and leaves his wife and goes out to a strip club. I'm just here to buy a steak. I'm just here to get a steak. I just that's all. Why? That's why I'm here. Well, why are your pants? I like steak a lot. Is that okay? I don't do work in a strip club as a bodyguard. I did back, and I'm talking like 15, 20 years ago. Like I said, I did bodyguard a guy, and I went into a strip club, but I didn't enjoy it. It was just, for one thing, when you go into those places, if you're like me, you can see the darkness, and you can see it on these people, and you can feel it. And, I'm not into that. I can't take that. I can't even go to nightclubs anymore. I went to a nightclub. My friend Cody has a nightclub down on 6th Street. I went down there. I couldn't go and it's just not my thing. And I don't, in fact, for those of you who've waited around this long, I'll tell you a story. I had a friend who worked in a strip club for a long time, and then he went and became a private bodyguard, whatever. And so we'll call him Jody, because that's his name. And he had a weird experience, and he told me about it. I mean, maybe a few months ago, he reiterated the story to me. He saw this weird shadow-looking thing hanging on this woman. This is not a person who's an experiencer. He's never seen anything, never had anything happen. But he saw this shadow-looking thing. He said it looked like on her back. Like it had like a weird-looking head and had long, scraggly hair. It kind of looked like a female, but he couldn't tell for sure. But its legs were like atrophied, and it looked like they were pulled up. And he said it looked like some sort of imp. And what we were talking about earlier with Steve Stockton, we were talking about the dark fairies. There's a book written by a guy that's Greg or George Curran. It's called Dark Fairies. It's pretty interesting. It talks about the Sealy Court, Unsealy Court, all these different types of beings, that have all these different, and every region has its own type of whatever. And that thing was on one of those women in that club. And every time she went out there, and every time he saw her, she got more and more like just haggard looking. And this thing is definitely just draining her energy. So he tried to talk to her about it when he didn't see the thing on her, and then it kind of materialized, and it began to hiss at him and literally reach out like an arm, kind of striking out at him. And then she flew into a panic, rage, and started yelling at him because this thing was literally manipulating her. And that it basically got in her psyche, whatever, and it drove him away because it doesn't want to give up the host. It's a parasite. See, that's the kind of stuff that you see in those places on these people. That's why I don't hang out in them. Plus, I don't really want to be there around people who don't want to be there themselves. I mean, it's like... When that old girlfriend that you didn't like broke up with you, even though you and Nellie have been together for 20 plus years. Okay. Obviously, this person doesn't. How much do you really know about me? You know? Do the dramatic. How much do you really know about me? Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking. Coralia Angelica says when that old girlfriend. Me and Nellie have been together for 5 years. So, I don't know. I don't know how long it's been since I've been in one of those clubs. It's been a long time. Maybe 10 years, maybe 15, maybe between 10 to 15 years, I would say. If not longer, if not even beyond 15. I'm trying to think if there was a time I even went into one. I don't know, for anything. Oh, you know what? I walked into one time to help a friend get paid. It says, gosh, I'll go away from your chat. I'm not trying to call you a problem. Don't let my Comanche Mexican son find out about it, though. He's in Texas. What? Are you threatening me now? Yeah, you deleted the message. That was crazy. Okay, so... The heck? Your Comanche Mexican son in Texas. Wow. Well, just don't let him find out about it. Okay, well... Cool, gee williker. I'm okay. Yeah. Whatever. Just got threatened. That's crazy. Okay, folks. Well, anyways, that's all I got time for. I better go into hiding because someone's son's going to come after me for... I don't know what they're talking about. I can't, they're being vague and whatever. And got all mad. Folks, remember, tickets, Saturday, 4 p.m. Eventbrite. Paranormal Round Table presents. I believe that's what it's under. Hey, Anthony. I don't even know if he's... I know he was tired. We woke up early today to do a bunch of stuff, man. So this guy's probably wiped. Hey, come in here for a second. Make sure that we got it correct.
Yeah.
The tickets go on sale Saturday by 4, right? Or at 4 or whatever. Okay, so what is the event called? Because I have named it, or we have named it. I don't know what you put on there on the original, because you and Ken were talking. It's Paranormal Round Table presents first annual Dogman / Cryptid conference.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Paris, Tennessee, August 13th. If you buy VIP tickets, you can go on August 12th and have a special dinner with all of us. Okay? There you go. All right, guys. Sorry that one of the listeners got so upset. She had to threaten me with her son. I don't know. It's crazy. Don't let him find out. Zoinks! This is not something you should tell people.